Welcome to the Dogger Pass podcast. I'm your host, Dan Tom. Analysts' work you may find at places like MMAJunkie.com. But on this here program, the Dogger Pass podcast, we break down high-level MMA, and that's what we're going to do here today, tonight. Whenever you're listening to this, hopefully it's before the fight, which is UFC 319. Of course, I'm going to be breaking it down with my usual co-hosts and a guest that I'm going to be introducing in 1 second. But first, let's bring in my co-host, Mike, at Madlab MMA, the madlabmma.com, if you want to find him in his blueprints. What's up, Mike?
What's going on, man? Excited for the show. Big card, big guest. I'm ready to roll.
Yeah, absolutely. I know when we took the reins of this show here program, there's a big OG audience that we wanted to respect. So we didn't want to like shock things too much. Not that we were looking to, right? However, we kind of been finding our own formats, finding our own bets, doing our own little brief recaps when we can. And you guys seem to be cool with that because we got the timestamps. But I'm like, you know what? Let's bring on like maybe some big guests for the pay-per-views. I've always been told to do it more for my old podcast, the Protect Your Neck podcast. And in fact, I had an excellent guest that I go way back on. I should have had way more considering how far back we go to the air quote mailroom, as he likes to put it, from Extreme Couture. So let's not waste any time, Mike. Let's bring on our guest here for UFC 319. We've got Extreme Couture head coach and Versus host over on YouTube, Eric Nixick at Eric_XCMMA. Eric, dude, like what's up, man?
My brother, it's good to see you guys.
It's great for you. Great for you to be here, man. This feels like it's long overdue. It feels like it's always long overdue because this sport has no off season, something, anybody that works in the space in any facet is well aware of. And even though we work like kind of, we're colleagues, right? And we literally live in the same state. We share the same gym even. That doesn't mean we see each other a lot. So I'm always super pumped to see you, man. And I'm guessing it's fairly mutual.
Yeah, you as well, bro. It's always like that homegrown feel when I see Dan Tom cruising the gym and, high fives and hugs. And then, as a lot of people may or may not know, you've always been a huge resource for me when it came to, early on in my career as well, or break down fights, or I'd hit you up and ask you questions because you had such a fresh eye and for the sport and maybe seeing things that, man, maybe we missed out on or didn't catch. So love having that relationship with you. And you've always made a huge impact on my career too, brother.
Yeah. Of course, we've had to keep it, as professional as possible. But you meet new people that, all the time. And some of those new people, like my guy Mike, are OGs in the sport, just like us, right? And by the way, I know you and Mike have already met and whatnot, but you two would definitely get along. Just knowing both of you guys are definitely cut from a similar cloth, similar size too. Although I think Mike's got size on all of us, to be honest. But yeah, you're right. When you see people that that are kind of like family, so to speak, if I dare say, you go almost 20 years now knowing somebody, you're like, oh, that's a real one right there. And yeah, the funny thing is like even though we both keep very professional within our own fields, when we do compare notes, I love that our notes are always spot on. Like I remember what we'll be breaking down fighters you prepared for, like Dricus Du Plessis, and I remember after the first Sean fight. And we were comparing notes, and that's why I'm always just like, I know Eric's going to have the right game plan. That's not the question when breaking down his fighter, because anything I thought of, I'm like, oh, if I thought of it, I know Eric's got it.
Yeah, this is a matter of going out and executing it, right?
Absolutely, man. And you've definitely, proven your worth there and whatnot. So I'm excited to link you up with my guy Mike, have you join the show, the Dogger Pass show, so we can all kind of put our brain trust together, so to speak, and break this card down. I know you're very passionate about that stuff, always have been, which is probably why you're so good at your job, Eric. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, brother.
All right. Mike, do we have anything that you wanted to kick off or promote at the top of the card? Because, dude, we'll get into it later when we pay off and recap and recap the picks and plays from this show. But Mike, you've been red hot, and that's not me, pumping you up as your co-host. That's just cold hard facts, man. Did you have anything to promote or want to shout before we get kicked off with this breakdown, sir?
Yeah, we'll shout it out. I'm not going to drag it out because I know I want to be respectful of Coach Nick 6 times. But yeah, we've been running really, really hot. I'm really, really proud of the way my guys have been playing their DraftKings and their wagers and stuff. So we're running another promo, UFC 319 MAD. That's the promo code. You come in, it's $20 off the first month. Full fight breakdowns, fight brain technology, wagering blueprint, DFS projections, live stream before the fight, private Discord. So you get kind of everything. You guys know, if you guys have come for a weekly pass and stuff, you kind of know what you get. It's pretty much everything you need for the card. But like I said, we'll talk about it a little bit more near the end. I want to be respectful of Coach Nick 6 time.
Absolutely, I do too. So let's get right into it because it's a really great card. You know, I think it's got the potential to be better, even than what it is on paper. But it's got a solid main event. I don't think anybody can disagree. Of course, that's a middleweight title fight between the sitting champ Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev, who is, of course, running things up at welterweight so far since he's moved up there. Chimaev, in fact, as the challenger, you're minus 240 favorite with the comeback on your underdog, the champion, Du Plessis, plus 195, or in the neighborhood of the over-under for this fight. It's a 5-rounder, but the total is set for 2.5 rounds, which means they're expecting the violent one, folks. Under there being slightly favored at minus 125, with it over 2.5 rounds sitting at minus 105, if anybody is interested in that. Now, heads up, Eric, I'm going to go straight to you for the co-main event, but I'll give this one an easy setup so we can get into the bounce around here. But just a quick setup for me is, basically is obviously, the basic narrative is, can Du Plessis survive the early storm? And what does Chimaev tend to look in the later rounds? We've had a limited sample size on that. And although Dricus was not forecasted to do well, from probably a lot of us early, looking at him, he's proven he can fight hard for 5 rounds. So that is the general dynamic going into that. But as I ease it toward our guest's way, because I'm sure Mike agrees, we're very excited to hear what he has to say. As someone who is prepared for Dricus multiple times, and also you've also gotten some looks, and I know we don't speak out of school here or whatever, and we're not expecting you to share any secrets or speak out of school as far as what happens in gym sparring or this or that, but you have been able to see these guys work along high-level sample sizes in the gym as well. I believe even when it comes to Khamzat. Am I right, Eric?
Yeah, Khamzat came out and spent a lot of time with us, during the later in the COVID era, and it was a very eye-opening experience, I think, for a lot of us because, Khamzat, he trains just as hard as he plays. He's very serious when he comes to his sessions in the room, but he's also very giving as well. Like, I learned a lot from him during that time and some of his routes on the ground and it's very systematic in some of the things that he does on the ground, but also explaining the reasons why he does certain things. Furthermore, holding pads for him was also a great experience because, as remember, Coach Follis used to always tell us, the space between the notes makes the music. And what I mean by that is the way Khamzat is so good at putting together his up-down level change into his striking to get your opponent guessing on where his hand placement goes. So even in the pad sessions, this guy is remarkable when it comes to blending his striking into his best threat, which is his wrestling, which I think is imperative because it's not an a la carte order. It's you really having to guess on which is coming and trying to hit it, essentially.
Yeah, most definitely there. Now, Mike, I know you've got a particular read, especially when it comes to boxing and footwork. Can you touch on any of this in and out movement? Like, I'll just add real quick that I really think, Chimaev's got really good jabs from both stances, for example. But Mike, I'm more interested on your take as well, as far as the Chimaev stand up and your breakdown kind of on this fight goes into it.
Yeah, so the thing that I see, I'll be honest, I'll be totally transparent here. I have not been very good at picking Du Plessis fights. DDP fights have been very difficult for me. As you guys know, like, I'm big into boxing, I'm big into stand-up, so I was always a huge Izzy fan. His footwork, the way he moves, the way he creates his angles, and creates space and stuff like that. And I would just look at DDP like a guy who eventually he's going to trip over his own feet. And it hasn't happened. It seems like this goofy foot technology of his has worked for him. It throws people off. Can't get a good beat on him, and it kind of makes you sit back. And you got to remember, these fights are short. Not a 5-round fight, but these fights the minutes tend to fly by, and by the time you figure somebody out, you could be behind. So I haven't really been very good at picking his fights. But when I look at Chimaev, I look at a guy who, at one time when he came in, people looked at him kind of like an anomaly. right? This is a guy who had heavy pressure, great wrestling, very powerful, kind of like freakish strength and good striking. But I have seen some little quirks in his game, like when he fought Usman and when he fought Gilbert Burns. And there were certain things where I'm like, well, you know what? There he maybe can be exposed. But I think even though I go against consensus a lot, I think the consensus is, look, it's Chimaev early. If DDP can survive that onslaught, then the question mark lies, like, what happens in the ocean? Can this guy really swim with a guy like DDP who does tend to get a little bit better, even though sometimes he does look tired later? He's really not. He finds these explosive gaskets that kind of push him through. So it's like, what do you like? What do you think? Do you think Chimaev is going to all of a sudden push through 5 rounds? He's going to have this steady state cardio? Maybe, maybe. But for me, it's like I've went against DDP so many times. I've doubted this guy so many times. Is Chimaev going to be able to bully ball him in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round? Because yes, he's big. He's very big, even for this division. But at the end of the day, DDP's strong too. He's like he can play bully ball with you if he has to. So to me, it's if he survives these 2 rounds, it's going to be more of a test for me to see now what is Chimaev going to do in these 3 rounds. In the first 2 rounds, to me, it's what is DDP going to do? Is he going to be able to survive? Is he going to be able to stay safe? Make his reads, and then in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, it's going to be more, okay, now Chimaev's starting to show me and prove to me that he could swim in these deep waters with a guy like DDP, and I'm not willing to go against the champ again. I'm just not. So for me, I'm going to take the dog here.
Yeah, I don't blame you there at all. And by the way, 2 stats I forgot to give on the setup, guys. 18-1 Du Plessis is a middleweight or in that neighborhood, and then 5-0 for Chimaev as a middleweight. Again, these guys also fought at welterweight in their careers, which is crazy to believe when you look at both of them, right? But not only at middleweight, not only in the UFC, but in general sample sizes, we've seen more of DDP. And you know me, I like underdogs. I like the more proven products, and he certainly fits in that spot. But when looking at their grappling, it is interesting because, and this is where I'm curious of if my notes match up with Eric's here. But I wrote Fluffy down here because I said on last week's show that Fluffy is probably the last guy in the division that you want to give the referee's position to, right? Turtle exposure, right? And I totally forgot to talk about Khamzat Chimaev, right? Like how did I miss that? Because he deserves to be right up there. Obviously, probably most people have him above Fluffy, and that's totally cool. Because he operates in that similar space. You were kind of alluding to that, Eric, right? You're watching his sequencing. He has a very similar process where he's very strong from. And the question is, how good does he look when he doesn't get to that process? And you don't want to judge him too early because he was able to get to that process and not put guys like John Phillips away. A guy like John Phillips was able to survive for the first round, like Kamaru Usman, right? But that was a much more raw version of Chimaev even then, right? That was almost 5 years ago. And then you look at DDP and like from the Trevin Giles, the Jay Giles fight, or even like you look at obviously with the Tavares fight, there's like really big grappling mess ups from DDP there.
Sure.
And he's missing like basic like whizzers. Whizzers something I look for against a guy like Chimaev because underhooks, as much as we love underhooks, what's the counter to an underhook? Is a guillotine and a darce. And what does Chimaev hunt? As soon as guys just go for it, you see him wired, right? Even like when Usman shot on him, you kind of saw him wired just to go right for it. And Usman used a single leg to swim out and stand. And there's an exact sequence actually. If you go watch the Derek Brunson fight with DDP, he uses the same elbow to knee swim. Now he doesn't fake a deep half first and then go to the single, kind of like a little nog, which is what Usman did to get out. But he used the same kind of escape that Usman did, which was a very basic knee to elbow. It's because when we saw the Usman fight, that was one of the few sample sizes where you see Chimaev on top still and in a dominant position, but he's not in his home base wrestle ride against the fence, right? Like he's in your standard half guard. And his game was pretty limited. Like Usman was actually striking more from the bottom. Sure. And even his shoulder pressures, it looked really good and strong at times, but it was almost just like he was kind of forgetting to go there. It just seemed more blanketing than offensive. And whether that's for stamina retention or that's a skill issue, that's a spot maybe where DDP can survive. And you look at DDP, and when I look at for underhooks, right? Like he goes high underhooks when you're supposed to, and you hear jiu-jitsu, oh, high underhooks, right? But something I remember Neal Melanson always preaching, and I kind of see this. You can kind of almost literally 99.9% of the time, it's this way where if someone gets caught underhooking and then getting darts, like I said, it's usually because they're underhooking too high. Now, if you do it more wrestling style below the ass, that creates a completely different angle. Now, they can still get a grasp on there, but it actually kind of puts you off balance because you have to get so low to really commit, and then you're getting swept over by the single. And man, I watched DDP's hand placement from his early fights to now. He's very disciplined on that single leg swim, which is still going to be very dangerous on a guy like Chimaev. But like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, maybe he could survive this, you know, and it's a big maybe. And we could look dumb here picking the dogs. I'm curious. And again, you know, obviously we know, you know, as far as betting goes, you know, you're not doing anything like that as far as to get yourself in trouble, but you understand the lingo, Eric. So so we're not putting you in a spot, and feel free to like not even pass on a pick, though. I'll be curious to see if you'll give us picks for these fights. But yeah, me and Mike could look really dumb here picking this dog. But that's kind of where we're leaning toward. Do you have a side you lean toward, or how do you break this fight down more definitively as far as the outcomes go?
I mean, it's hard not to disagree with you guys. And I think the one thing that I want to circle back on that Mike made a great point on is Dricus's style of striking is very unorthodox. And I think when you start to be that unorthodox style and you go against guys that are very pure in their striking, in the example that you're giving with Izzy, it creates disruption. I think Izzy is a guy who needs harmony and beautiful striking, and the technique is more of like a Thai style. So when you, as Jay Haran always said, Dricus is a booger, and it's no disrespect to Dricus. There's an awkwardness to him that it takes a while for you to really understand what is coming at you or what type of offense is being dictated at the pace of Dricus. So, you know, I think it's a great read on you, Mike, in understanding that. And I think Dricus relishes in that. He wants you to have to think that he looks a certain way, but him and I've had this conversation before, like in the past, Dricus and I really talked about, like, that's part of why he does it that way, is because he wants it to look erratic, and it gives you a harder read and an understanding of what the striking game looks like for him. On the ground game stuff with Chimaev, the things I notice is it's a systematic route by route situations a lot of times with Chimaev. Let's give this by example. Let's say if Khamzat goes to a snatch single to a body lock to an air chair to, he has a seat belt. If you can disrupt the system and make him keep going back from, instead of the finality being A through F being the finish, if you can keep him going from A, B, C, D, back to B, back to A, B, C, D, back to E, back to, like, keep him going in. And it doesn't mean that you're going to keep him in a position where he's not going to be in an advantageous position, but you make him continuously restart his sequences. I think that's going to be important for Dricus, and that not allowing that quicksand, if you will, of the depth and keep drowning in the style of grappling that Khamzat has. Khamzat will stay in a position till it expires. He's not rushing from position to position that you and I will talk about later on in like a Tim Elliott style where he's creating scrambles and chaos. Khamzat is looking to try to melt you and cook you in these positions until you make a decision. Okay, I'm going to either go here or there. But guess what? Who knows the next route? Khamzat. He's the guy that knows what your options are available. So that's the question mark to me, and you guys breaking down not only Khamzat, but what Dricus's routes are on his escapes and exits. Don't give your back away against this guy. Look to try to scrape the cage, use the cage to your advantage, but try to break the system of what Khamzat's grappling usually looks like.
Nice. Mike, anything you want to add on to that?
No, I think between the three of us, I think we covered pretty much everything.
I'll just add two things. One was a note that I know me and Eric both had, that we noticed his body work is a potential opening against Dricus. Kickers, his kick defense isn't great, and his body work defense isn't great. And, Izzy came in with a great game plan for that fight. Like, he really did. And even then, it still didn't work, right? Because Dricus looks like he's tired, and it was almost inviting an aggressive Izzy. And back to something, back to shout out to Robert Follis. Remember, we always talk about picking up the pack and putting down the pack. And I remember talking to Follis, I said, I feel like you can make your most gains if you can feel your opponent put down the pack, right?
Sure.
And you almost saw that, because I remember having to rewind like a bunch of times, like, where does this fight turn? Like literally the finish feels like it comes out of nowhere, right? Yeah. But if you think about it, from picking up the pack and putting down the pack, I think he was really catching Izzy on both the mental and physical exhale.
It's a great point. And
if he can bait a guy like as measured into the deep rounds and experienced and calculated as Izzy, I got to imagine he's going to bring that out of a guy like Khamzat, who, like you said, Eric, even in practice couldn't help himself. Even with the close call with Usman, you think maybe does he learn lessons against Whitaker? No, went straight at Whitaker, right?
Yeah. Dricus did a really good job against Sean, disrupting Sean's base, and it wasn't like he was landing meaning the second fight, but he was picking at him. It was inside low kick, kick, right? And it was just one of those things where it was almost like badgering him with kicks. Now, I want you to reverse engineer that side of things, and why I always stress to our great wrestlers to learn to develop a good kick game. The reason why is because if you can play with another guy's ego, and if I can, as the wrestler, if I'm Khamzat, if I can kick Dricus and get him to think about a kicking battle or making a natural reaction return kick back, there's an opening for me to be able to get a successful takedown or fit in while you're on one foot, basically using your own ego against yourself to get you in a kicking battle.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I used to remember if I wanted a takedown in Big Gloves practice, I would just throw a leg kick and hope they would return one and just go for the takedown. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I say that to say that in Khamzat's defense, I know we're talking about a lot of the grappling dynamic. I actually think he's got the striking tools to hurt Dricus on the feet. But back to the pacing thing, is that it's going to be you can't help but feel it's going to be a honey trap, to where if he doesn't get the finish, oh boy, he might be in for a surprise like other fighters.
Some guys are just wired that way. Some guys just instinctually, they could say they're going to be patient. You have this perfect blueprint for them, but the minute they get in there, the instinctual aspect of their personality comes out. Like sometimes people can't help themselves. I don't know if he could be a patient fighter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's always interesting dynamic too as a coach when you have the luxury of a 5-round fight and a championship pace. You never want to throw a round away. You never want to give a round away. But when you're talking about somebody that might have a question mark in their cardio, that sometimes you might just, round one, all I want to do is make this individual work as much as possible. That was very similar to our game plan with Sean Strickland and Abus Nurmagomedov was, let's make this guy work a lot in round one. We might lose the round. It might be close, but if we can tax him in round one, it will have a betterment for the entirety of the rest of the fight. And lo and behold, Sean was able to get him out of there in round two. So if Dricus's game plan is maybe to counter wrestle, knowing that, hey, I'm going to make him pummel, I'm going to make him clinch, I'm going to dirty box, I'm going to stay heavy, and we're going to try to tax him as much as possible, all the while by staying safe, then I think that's where you might be able to see Dricus drag him into deeper waters and, question that cardio that we all want to see how Khamzat looks in rounds 4 and 5.
Yeah, absolutely. And then last thing before we move to the co-main event here, because I have a note written that says Oz. But speaking of coaches' preparation, we joke and stuff about, Mornay Visser, and it looks like an episode from Oz in the Corner with how he's just jostling Du Plessis. I mean, don't let that guy do Little League Cup checks, by the way. I mean, I don't know how they run it in South Africa. But no, all jokes aside, you got to give them credit, right? Like they've really prepared their fighter well, and I want to give credit where credit's due. I know there's a lot of jokes made, but all respect. And I know you respect your colleagues too, Eric, obviously.
Oh, man, they're amazing. And they only get better every time out. And I think that's a testament to being a great champion. It really is. You watch GSP's run. GSP was able to adapt and become better every time out. And not only that, he would challenge these guys, the cause checks in their own right, better discipline, supposedly. And you would see GSP go out and out wrestle Khamzat. Koscheck. So you're seeing this in DDP's transformation is every time out he's getting better and better, and that's what you love to see out of your champions.
There's a reason you come to the Dogger Pass podcast for your UFC picks, just like there's a reason why Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. For over 35 years, Morgan & Morgan has been fighting for the people just like you and I. They have over 100 offices and more than 1,000 lawyers nationwide. When hiring Morgan & Morgan, it's like hiring an army that's got your back. If you're injured by the negligence of another, you deserve to be paid. When you hire the wrong law firm, you might be beat before you start. All law firms are not the same. If you're ever injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. For more information, go to forthepeople.com/doggerpass or dial #law, #529 from your cell phone. That's forthepeople.com/doggerpass or #law, #529 from your cell. This is a paid advertisement.
100%, 100%. All right, guys, let's kick it over to this co-main event that, even though it's impromptu, a lot of people are excited for it. We got Aaron Pico making his promotional debut. Was supposed to be against Movsar Evloev. However, in steps Lerone Murphy as Evloev was forced to withdraw on shorter notice, but Lerone Murphy, an underdog, a +160 with the favorite -190 for Aaron Pico. Totals for this fight, gentlemen, 2.5 rounds for a 3-round fight. The under +170, the over -210. Now, before we break this down from a betting perspective, because we just mentioned those odds, this feels like one of those fights where you could argue the odds are not just off, because we could always argue that, but it's one where the totals and money lines perhaps are not in harmony, right? Like, if Lerone Murphy's the underdog, we're assuming Pico probably gets a finish with his main winning conditions, especially, throughout his career. Whereas Lerone Murphy, not that he can't finish, but he is more of the grinder, right? And he can finish as well. So he's finishing upside as well. So maybe you would think those numbers maybe would be switched there. So that is interesting. They're slightly favoring it to go over, I believe, but they're also favoring Pico to win. Eric, I warned you I was going to go to you first for this because, I love your analysis on switch stance fighters, which Lerone Murphy can do. And obviously you're familiar with Aaron Pico. So please, the floor is yours. Well, what did you think of this fight when it got announced?
Well, let's touch on the odds and why you're probably seeing it to that regard. When you break these two fighters down, where's the skill gap going to be that's going to favor a guy like Aaron Pico? The odds are telling you is that Aaron Pico is a better wrestler. And the odds are telling you that Aaron Pico is going to take Lerone Murphy down and dominate him on the ground, but might not be able to get that finish. So to me, I think that is going to be a lot of what Pico's game plan should be to negate some of that movement, is to be able to score these takedowns. Now, what happens when you score your early takedowns in a fight? Your level change has more validity. So to set up your overhands and set up your power shot, if you're able to get the opponent guessing on the takedowns, that's going to be very important for Aaron Pico to get a great offensive rhythm going. And I think that's why you're seeing the odds the way that you are. Now, Lerone Murphy's footwork and everything that we dealt with when he fought Dan Ige was as advertised. It was exactly what we expected. What we wanted to do when Dan fought him was to bottleneck him, to put him in the corner post and the flat panels of the cage to try to funnel him in positions to where we limited some of his lateral movement, but also his 45-degree angles. If you go back and watch Josh Emmett versus Lerone Murphy, a lot of his exits were out of an orthodox stance. He would float towards Josh Emmett's power hand side, knowing that Josh Emmett would throw the overhand. But he would do this before he got limited to the cage. Then he would drop step into southpaw and veer off to the angle side and be able to lace him with the left cross. That's where you see the stance switch in motion, utilizing you understanding that what's going to come at you is this overhand, and I'm going to use that against him to be able to shake step off and then get my offense going. So knowing Pico, knowing his camp, I think that they're going to be ahead of that and look for ways to trap that door and then also imply some of that wrestling there and slow down Lerone Murphy's movement.
Absolutely. Corral maybe with that left hook there. And yeah, that's excellent insight from a coach who's prepared for both these fighters in relevant form. And again, that's another classic. Before I pass it to Mike, that was another classic Dan Ige fight where don't look at the result, watch the fight. It's not only closer than what the result says, but you might even come up with different scores for certain rounds, kind of a deal. Like with Dan Ige's fight with Josh Emmett, for example, that's a classic example of that.
Yeah.
But Mike, what's your read on this fight, man? Just as curious for your read on this one as well, my man, with Pico and Murphy here.
I'm just going to kind of add on to what Coach Nixick said, because I agree with everything he said there. I think with Pico is, for me, like when I'm breaking down a fighter, especially someone that's new, and he's not new to me, but when I look at their somatotype. I think there is something to be said about a true fighter's body. You know what I mean? Like you look at someone like Muhammad Ali, not over muscular, but he had a true fighter's body. Lactic acid, a lot of that stuff. When I look at Pico, the ceiling is so high for this kid because he's got a different kind of athletic. He's very explosive. He's an intelligent kid, which obviously DT, we talk a lot about how I really look at interviews and their intelligence, and it helps a lot, obviously, with fighting and blueprinting and stuff like that. But the kid, from his wrestling to even his boxing is actually is very underrated, in my opinion. I think that really helps him open up his wrestling. And when you look at all the guys that have given him problems, even like someone like Jamie Kennedy, they kind of, like Coach said, they kind of corral him a little bit, and they kind of try to disrupt him with some chaos. And then when I look at Murphy, he's not a guy to do that. He's not a guy that's going to just step into the pocket, bite down, and throw hands. He's looking to be a little bit more systematic. He's looking to be on his bike, move lateral, score, get in, get out. I just don't think that's going to work with Pico. I think he's going to have the bigger moments. I think he's going to find success in the wrestling. I think he's got a very good top heavy game. Listen, Murphy's a very good athlete in his own right, but I think he's going to be the one that's going to be I think Pico's going to be running downhill in this fight. And I think just optics is going to give him the lean here.
Excellent. So the two elephants in the room for both fighters, I would say, is one, the short notice for Murphy, and he's already a big guy for the division. That's a worry, right? As far as that goes, and they're still keeping the same weight, I believe. Yep, still 145-pound fight. And then for Pico, it's more woo-woo, but it's something that we've seen and recently is not just Bellator fighters, but in general, just fighters coming for their first fight over, even in winning fights, right? As fun as Michael Johnson versus Justin Gaethje was, like Justin Gaethje almost lost that fight a bunch of times, right? That was a wild fight. And he actually performed, granted, so maybe not the best example, but I'm just saying even the best examples, that caveat kind of is still ever present. So that's something that, perhaps could, scare off people who agree with the analysis as far as Pico being the favorite. And, I initially wanted to lean toward him too, but this one I'm a bit torn on because I agree with all the analysis on Lerone Murphy. And for that reason, I've taken shots against him as far as picking against him. I picked Ige, and I even took a flyer on Emmett, which I knew was much more of a wilder flyer, and it looked terrible, more terrible than it was in hindsight because it's just the way the fight was fought, and it was lackluster. I mean, neither fighter looked good, but yeah, you definitely didn't look great picking the Emmett side. So perhaps it's my fear to look dumb again. But yeah, I want to leave the door open for myself on this one, but for the purposes of the show, I am going to pick Pico, my initial lean there. But either way, on where I land, I don't know if this is a fight that I want to get involved at the betting window. Well, what do you think about that, Mike? Is this a fight you're feeling bullish on for betting, or are you?
I wouldn't go near, because there are a lot of things involved. As much as I think he has a lot of potential, I think that's a little bit of a blown out line. It is his debut. A lot of things can happen once you make it to the big dance, even though, he's had his fights in Bellator and stuff. There's something different. We've seen it with Manel Cap. We've seen it with Ariane Lipsky. We've seen certain things happen in people's initial fights coming in. And, Murphy's been there, like I said, and he is a sharp, athletic fighter who, yes, he can dance around and make him like a greyhound chasing a rabbit in there, so you don't know. I wouldn't go near it, but I can see Pico winning this fight and looking north of -200.
That's a good point. I think the one thing too in breaking down Pico from our end, when we did have Jeremy Kennedy, and something that Lerone Murphy is very, very good at is the inside elbows and creating those car crashes with the elbows on the inside when Pico does open up to engage in a big overhand or leans out to the side to throw the liver shot. What we tried to do a lot with Jeremy was to use that forward pressure, or that car crash, if you will, to try to cut Pico, to try to use the elbows, not only to try to put him out, but to create damage or an injury or a cut to get back to the corner to work on, things like that. And Lerone Murphy is excellent at crashing those inside elbows, whether it's the lead elbow or the rear elbow. Those are some things that I think that Lerone Murphy is going to employ really well in this fight. And it is something that I feel that Pico can be susceptible to when he leads with power.
Great note and great tactic too, by the way. I love your implementation on it. One of the ones I remember my guy Miguel class highlighting in the fight of the year, Zellhuber versus Ribovic, and you gave that directive as well, and it worked beautiful on Ribovic as far as adding that second layer of turning, of the jab and turning defense into offense. So I just wanted to shout. That's a great, love that look. Keep preaching that, Eric, please. Plenty of us love that and nerd out over that shit. So that's a great note. Yeah. Okay. So we all seem pretty much on the Pico side, but yeah, not in a rush to, run to the betting window with the caveats attached. So let's move down to the next fight on the card. Oh, we got a Southpaw versus Southpaw.
I love this fight, dude.
Southpaw versus Southpaw fights. Yeah, Geoff Neal, of course, he is going to be facing Carlos Prates. Carlos Prates, the Nightmare, minus 260 is your favorite. Underdog, Geoff Neal plus 210. Totals for this is set at 2.5 rounds for a 3-rounder, of course, with the over 2.5 at plus 125, the under 2.5 minus 155. So they set it at 2.5, but they're still predicting a bit of violence there with the under minus 155. Before I kick this over to Mike first, I just want to set you guys up with some Southpaw stats. Prates actually 0-0 against UFC level Southpaws. I'm going to try to dig a little more into his regional, maybe even if I can find some, Thai footage, not that it's too relevant, but I just want to see how he looks against Southpaws. Stay tuned. Since it's a pay-per-view week, I'll have the official full-length Southpaw report over at Home of Fight with clips over on my Twitter at Dan Tom MMA. Whereas Geoff Neal, he stands actually at 2-0 against UFC level lefties. One of those comes on the regional scene to Charlie Ontiveros, who had a cup of coffee in the UFC. He was kind of the, forgive me, he's probably a really, really nice dude, probably have similar interests, but for lack of better description, a glass cannon type fellow, right? Either comes to knock you out or gets knocked out, so to speak. We've seen him fight from 185 to 155 in the UFC and outside of it. And the other Southpaw, and I'm not counting Stephen Thompson, who I will have highlighted, by the way, because obviously Stephen Thompson does switch and was able to do a lot of stuff to Geoff Neal in that fight, even with one leg at a certain point, if I remember correctly, about the 4th or 5th round. But I'm trying to find that last Southpaw for you guys. I apologize. That was Rafael Dos Anjos in his last fight, but that was an injury right off the bat. If you guys remember that. Not much to take off that fight, but I'll include what I can in the official report but yeah, with those stats in mind, Mike, take it away, man. I'm curious what you got for the Southpaw versus Southpaw matchup, which can always throw things on a tilt because, Mike, as you know, as a Southpaw like me, no one hates fighting Southpaws more than other Southpaws. So with that, 100%. What's up, bro?
Yeah, so listen, this is one of the fights on the card. When I broke this down for the site, I said this is one of the fights that I'm most excited about on the card, because when you look at this from a stylistic standpoint, I mean, from an entire MMA spectrum, you look at Carlos Prates as he's better. He utilizes kicks more. He understands range. He really knows how to keep you at the end of his punches. Once he starts kind of getting into that flow state, it seems like he's just like pinpoint accurate. It's just punches land where they have to land. And it's not even like he's loading up and trying. When you know how to generate and throw a proper punch, and your footwork is good, like everything just kind of works in concert with each other. But there is always going to be a path that can nullify that. When you look at Geoff Neal's a guy who, let's face it, like he's kind of one-dimensional, but that one thing that he's very one-dimensional in, he's very, very good. And what helps him with that is his chin. He is not afraid to come into the mid-range. He's not afraid to cross the fray. And he will take a couple to land that big shot. He's got big power. He's got I love his boxing. A little flat-footed, but I love his boxing. I like the way he hunts. And I think that is a style that can ultimately give Prates issues. Now, Prates is going to do a good job, obviously, keeping him at distance, with his kicks and trying to keep him honest like that. But when you got the durability, not that you want to rely on that durability, but when you have that kind of durability where you're confident that you can kind of enter that mid-range like Geoff Neal does, he can cause you a lot of problems with his hands. He's got very sharp hands, very big power. And although in a points fight, I think Prates probably might lead the parade on this, I honestly think that at some point in time, Geoff Neal's going to find the spot and knock him out.
Wow, bold read, but I could see it. The left hand, I will say, before I toss it to Eric, one of the most potent things you'll see is the left hand in the Southpaw versus Southpaw matchups. Everybody focuses on the right hand, open stance, throw power kick, which is great. Well, but they always say throw the right hand down the pipe. But if you look at the left hand's kind of the Southpaw versus Southpaw killer. I really got to pick up this James Toney fight. I want to keep referencing. So instead, I'll reference the MMA version, Jorge Masvidal, Darren Till, where they do that kind of jump shift that Eric was talking about earlier, except he launched into the overhand left. And even like left hooks, like was it Sam Stout against Eve Edwards, even when you don't switch to the southpaw stance, it's because southpaws are so used to owning that angle, right? They're jabbing off to the side, they're owning the lead hand, that they're used to owning that lane, so that when you do get over that blind spot, it really shocks them. I mean, hooks are already obviously shocking shots, hence when you're, remembering, crazy one punch knockouts, a lot of times it's hooks, right? Because, you don't see it coming, the mechanics of it, very strong. And you even see it with southpaws, even when they don't land their left hand, because it's such a potent lane that, and I don't know if you could speak to this too, Mike, being a lefty, but you almost feel weird. And you can even watch like higher level guys when they spar a lefty, at least at first, their left hand is not going to look as good as it normally does. Because again, it's a different distance. There's a different gait. There's different counters coming your way. And everybody just feels awkward as hell. But it's almost like it's a free shot. It's almost like it works every time, but you're so afraid to throw it because you're just not used to that potent lane. You're used to the southpaw distance, the southpaw advantage. So the left hands will be live on both sides. So not a crazy call, Mike. But Eric, what are you seeing in the southpaw versus southpaw fight?
Yeah, not only left hands, but also your calf kicks. Your calf kicks are live in these situations. And I think that if you go back and watch some of the great things that Ian Gary did versus Prates, the blueprint is there. The blueprint is there and understanding on how to beat him. And Geoff Neal is the type of individual that, man, you wish you saw him fight more often, because he's one of the best in the division for a reason. So with that being said, I think you can also see Geoff Neal possibly playing out of some of that orthodox stance, just so you can negate some of Prates' left cross. Because Prates keeps that left hand so low, if you can start kicking or throwing the head kick to that side to occupy the left hand, it takes a little bit of that rhythm away from what Prates is trying to accomplish offensively. So when you start in an orthodox stance as a southpaw, you Trojan horse your power hand into a different stance by throwing like a clean orthodox 1-2, and then you step over and do another stance or step over cross. So it occupies a little bit of time and space, but it disguises it essentially. I think Geoff Neal has that skill set and that capability. And I really think that this is the type of fight that Geoff Neal can shine in. So seeing him as a 2-1 underdog, doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I think that there's a recency bias for what we're seeing with Carlos Prates. I do think Prates has a great chance of winning this fight, but I echo what Mike says. I think all around, I think Geoff Neal is the better mixed martial artist. And I think that this is a great fight for him to showcase his skill set.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm definitely going to comb the Ian Gary fight for certain looks to see. I know Ian Gary will occasionally switch to see if there's anything there I can comb for the Prates southpaw report. But unless I find anything that sways me there, I am leaning toward the favorite. However, with the caveat of I completely understand what you guys are saying. And for that reason, I have no interest with wanting to get involved with the favorite, even if that's where I firmly land, because it feels like it's a dog or pass fight. It feels like it's a gunfight. And the only reason why I'm not siding with Geoff Neal's guns is because the vibe I get matches his history of what the actual evidence is. And we can go a bit too much off vibes and not enough off evidence, right? And sometimes us analysts can go too much off evidence, and sometimes it's all about the vibes, baby, right? And you only know that when you're on the ground and on the floor in the thick of things, right? As you are and can sense these things, Eric, or people who cover the sport on the ground can speak to. But yeah, Geoff Neal is that he's a headhunter, man. And as much as I love guys like Robert Whitaker, I got to come to grips that some guys are just not going to go to the body, no matter how much you want them to go to the body.
Yeah.
They're not going to kick the leg, like with Geoff Neal and Neil Magny. I'm like, is he going to know to just punch the body and kick Neal's leg and not clench with him? Like, that's the key. Kick his leg and don't clench with him. And Neal has this like hypnosis where he's like, clench with me. He did it in his last fight, right? Like,
sounds like Roman Dolidze. Roman, hit this guy to his body. Jesus.
Yes. Yeah. You know what it means. But by the way, I remember one of my favorite things is I love when people are like, why didn't the fighter do this, right? Or they blame the fighter and the coach. Like, why didn't the coach do this? Or the coach does the right advice, but the fighter doesn't. They go, well, the coach told him, why didn't you do this, fighter? Like, it's so easy. And I will quote you, Eric. I don't know if you remember saying this. I don't know who you said it to, but we were in the practice room, and I remember you saying to somebody, going, dude, these guys are pro MMA fighters. I'm lucky if I get them to shit in the toilet.
100%. Clean up. Pick up your tape. Can we do that?
Yeah.
It was funny on Monday's practice was over, and I said to the guys, hey, listen, I know I'm taking some criticism for the fight, whatever. I said, I love you guys, and don't worry about it. It is what it is. And then the first guy to speak up was Sean Strickland, and Sean goes, hey, listen, if there's anybody in the world that will attest to probably should listen to their coaches more, it's me.
I love that.
He goes, man, we love you, bro, and just keep on doing your thing, so it's part of it.
And by the way, plug to Eric's podcast, Versus Us, and if you want to just always an excellent show. But I really love the things you said, and one of the things you said about Sean and your guys' relationship and his relationship to the gym, that kind of speaks to it right there. As far as the camaraderie that he promotes in his own way, that was a perfect example right there.
Sure.
But hey, but back to this fight though. It's the Geoff Neal is a headhunter as much as. I agree. I think he's got the skills for it, and I think he can win this fight. Like, I don't disagree with anything you guys said. I just have a hard time trusting him, man. And he's even got it, and he's got a coach too who's going to be telling him, is going to be on his ass. That's one thing you can count on Saif Saud for. Is output and being on their fighter's ass, right? But again, you could have the best coaches, in corners in the world. We got one on the show, folks, right now for you. That doesn't guarantee the win, though, right?
Right.
That's the point. So I'm gonna reluctant. Go ahead.
No, you know what I compare him to? Like, he's very matchup predicated, right? Like, if you look at him, he's very matchup predicated. Like, you can make certain reads, be like, this is gonna be a really fucking tough fight for him. But and we're all, obviously Coach Nick Sick and everyone's familiar, like Chris Curtis. If you give him a certain stylistic matchup, you have a fucking fight on your hands. So it's the same thing with Geoff Neal. If you give him that certain style matchup where you're giving him the opportunity to, catch a little bit rhythm and square up in the pocket, you're asking for fucking trouble. And it just seems like that's the kind of fight Carlos Prates is going to open up to him.
Absolutely. Let's push on and get through the rest of this main card. I want to keep respectful to Coach Nick Sick's time here. We got Jared Cannonier versus Michael Page. Another fight I know a lot of people are excited for. Kind of a weird one. We got Jared Cannonier, the tenured middleweight, plus 165, former heavyweight and UFC light heavyweight. Of course, Michael Venom Page, who was a career-long welterweight, felt like he was coming up to middleweight for a one-off against Shara, won that fight, and here he is again as a minus 195 favorite. Totals 2.5 rounds for a 3-round fight, with the over 2.5 rounds, minus 260, under 2.5 rounds, plus 200. Although I think there's finishing potential on both sides, I don't disagree with the totals there. I think this goes over more times than not. And even though this just seems like another fight where it's like whether you pick Prates or Neal, whether you pick Pico or Murphy, it does feel like, there's an argument for the dog regardless of how you fall on it. However, before I kick it off to Eric this time around, I will say this. One of the things that comes down to this fight, even though it feels like trappish, even though it feels like, both Michael Venom Page rolling the dice, and you never know too, the way UFC offers these fights, they might offer it in encouraging ways. You hear some fighters go, I was always wanting to go down to welterweight, but I was winning and the UFC just kept offering me fights here. I think Chris Curtis, I think you just mentioned that's who I'm probably parroting right now, said something similar, right? So you never know the standard that goes in, but stylistically, I will say this before I ask your guys' reads. When you zoom out, I talk about when you zoom out from these guys' careers that have a bigger sample size, like a Jared Cannonier does. Two things that jump out is southpaw counters, and regardless of the stance, a fighter with a jab is his stylistic kryptonite. Going back to Jan Blachowicz up at light heavyweight, down to middleweight with Izzy. Even if it's a lackluster fight, if you've got a good jab, Sean Strickland, which is, I know bias here, but that was another one where I thought, just like the first DDP fight, I thought Sean edged that out. But again, it was a fighter with a good jab. And then, zooming out, not that I'm too big on the age thing, especially with they're both older guys, but Cannonier has been rocked or dropped or stopped in 4 of his last 5. And that 5th fight, again, was a fight that he arguably lost and got jabbed up by Sean Strickland. So I'm siding with the not too bullish, by the way. I am siding, spoiler alert, siding with the favorite Michael Venom Page, but I'm more curious on what you guys have for this fight. Eric, how do you mark this one out?
Honestly, I lean towards Cannonier in this one, and my reasonings for this is durability. And I lean towards a guy that can get Michael Venom Page pressed up against the cage and work his clinch. not only work his clinch, but when you're in the clinch positions with a guy with a long anatomy, long legs, utilizing efficient takedowns by not having to drop down to doubles and singles, but using your feet, using your trips, inside, outside trips. Those also will incite tie-ups with the legs. So when you land in an advantageous position, you land in the topside Turk, topside half, things like that. We've seen Venom Page have these issues against Logan Storley, although that was another close fight because of damage on the back. I look to see Cannonier score these takedowns pretty efficiently and pretty easily, but also be able to implement some of Cannonier's, one of his best attributes is this great ground and pound. So that is where I lean towards, because I look at where could the bigger skill gap be. To me, it's going to be the wrestling, grappling, and also the size of Jared Cannonier come fight night versus Venom Page. So that's where I lean.
Nice. I love the clinch notes. Mike, what do you got on that, man?
Yeah, well, I got to agree with him there. As far as that was my path that I had the whole time written down. As far as like Cannonier, there is that just a path. I mean, you get in on his hips, you take him down. He's got nasty ground and pound. He's a freak athlete as well. You know what I mean? But I just go back to, is he going to do that? Which maybe he does, and if he does, I think he wins this fight pretty decisively. Because you're locking him down. You're not allowing Michael Venom Page to be unchained and loose. But I used to spar with a guy back in when I lived back in Jersey. Shout out to Ikes and Patterson. This guy Billy, who had a very awkward style like Michael Venom Page. And from the outside of the ring, you're looking at him and I'm like, dude, I'm going to box this guy out of his shoes. And then when you get in there, it's just so frustrating because it's like he would clear space so quick to the point where like he's not even catching you at the end of his punches. He's catching you at like a half extension because he clears so quick, so far so quick. And that's what Michael Venom Page does so good. It's like there's no rhyme or reason why he does anything. There's nothing tied behind it. It's just when he decides he wants to explode, he's going to explode. And it seems like it's so readable from watching it from the outside, but when you're in there, you could see these guys their reaction times are like way behind. Cannonier's getting a little bit older. His reaction times, even though he's tremendous shape, he's doing it for the Grays, doing it for us older guys. His reaction times just aren't what they used to be. And I just think it's going to be a cat and mouse game with him, where once you start getting frustrated, once you can't like kind of lock him down, you tend to make mistakes because you start doing things out of a little bit desperation. You got to leave the blueprint a little bit. You got to try different things. And I think that's what Michael Venom Page does that's so good. He frustrates his opponents in there. So although I agree that is his path, if he can lock him down and consistently drag this and get some control time, I think this is a clear path for him to win. But it's hard for me to bet against Michael Venom Page when you got to understand how to crack that code. And you don't know if you can crack that code until you're in there with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, part of the reason that, I'm going with Page is, is those reasons. But I want to say in defense of, if you look at the stats, it could be misleading, right? And we say this all the time. The stats are always very misleading. And Cannonier doesn't have a high takedown attempt percentage. He doesn't have a high completion percentage. And even in some of the fights where you think he should be going for takedowns, he might not necessarily be going for takedowns, and so you're like, okay, how dependable is he, right? And that definitely does play a bit into my pick. However, when you look into it, it's not necessarily the completed takedowns. Now, a lot of those are coming from fighters engaging him as well. So that's how it ends up with him on top, and you get to see some of that magnificent ground and pound that Eric alluded to. But what Eric said is the clinch. He doesn't necessarily need to get guys down. He actually does a decent amount in the clinch, and that's actually where he sparks off the beginning of the end. I know the finish comes in round 4 against a old hobo cop there, which, by the way, I love when the Brazilians mess up the English. Remember, like when Vanderlei was like, "I want to fuck Chuck. I want to fight Chuck." I think I gotta find the fight, but HoboCop, he always does a dead or alive. He always does the RoboCop thing. But one of the fights I think he got like concussed. He messed it up, and he was like, "Dead or alive, you're coming on me." And I'm like, HoboCop, no, that's not how the line goes. No, HoboCop. But I always love when the Brazilians mess it up. But anyways, if you look at it, it's actually from the clinch to Eric's point. It's a quick collar tie. Wrist pin, boom. It was real quick. They weren't even like slogged up against the fence. It was technically an open space. He didn't really need much time. Now, is Michael Venom Page going to give those moments? He typically doesn't, right? He's probably going to have to pin him against the cage, and he's going to have a harder time probably doing so because it is the bigger cage. But I will say again, Eric's point is so valid that this could just looking like, oh, y'all must have forgot. The takedowns really could come easy, and he could smash him out on the ground because I have not been impressed with MVP's bottom game. It's like it's kind of almost like an early Izzy bottom game when Marvin Vettori was getting him down in that first fight.
It's very submissive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if he can mind his geography, MVP, and understanding his angles off his back steps, and like what Mike is saying, you can catch Cannonier coming in, a la Sean O'Malley style of that pull counters and shake steps like Israel Adesanya is so accustomed to. I think you can definitely set your traps if you're Venom Page, but if it's a real estate thing and a durability thing, for me, a guy like who we've seen Cannonier take some punishment in a 4 or 5, a 5-round fight, if he can navigate through some of that and find these pit stops, if you will, and slow the fight down against the barrier, that's where I think that you can see Cannonier be able to take over and really wearing on him. It doesn't need to be mat returns. It doesn't need to be aggressive takedowns, but just almost like I'll use the word cheeky, but like more judo foot trips and cheeky quick takedowns to make him work his way back up under duress. So I really feel like not only is Cannonier a great product of what the MMA lab preaches, but I think John Crouch is going to put together a great game plan, and that's why I lean towards Cannonier in this fight.
Oh yeah, underrated camp, which is crazy to say. It's not underrated for those in the know, but John Crouch has been doing the damn thing.
Oh man, consistent, right?
Oh, he's such a gamer too in there too. You got to respect him even when he's doing that was nothing when he's playing to the judges. He plays the game. You got to respect it though. All respect. And just last thing on that, I think I just want to own something from last week that I think is playing into my pick this week, where I was so confident, Eric, on the over, because I was like, oh, Anders, I know what Anders is going to do. He's going to throw a left hand and push into the cage, and he's an over machine, and he's durable, and shout out to people last week. I know I'm a curmudgeon with I always hate when people say easy money for first round finishes or whatever, because it always I feel like disrespectful picking a first round finish. Like you're picking against a professional athlete who's been preparing 8 weeks just to get washed in the first round. It kind of feels disrespectful out of principle, much less to bet it, much less to be like, that was easy as the guy who didn't get in there or train for it. It kind of feels silly for me. Obviously I'm being ironic. We all say easy money. It's fine. But so props to anybody who picked CLD to get that TKO, by the way. And it was a good read, because people would like, the analysis was spot on, right? It was, Anders is durable, but he's getting older and he's been getting rocked more. And I'm always the last to get off these trains because I love the old guys. I love the guys with the grappling path. I love the underdogs, which is why I'm like, why am I not picking Cannonier here, to Eric's point, right? But I just want to bring it up. I might be overcorrecting the steering wheel because, again, you see it with refs do it. We're all it's human nature. We all overcorrect the steering wheel. We got to be aware of that.
Well, I was accused of betting the over in Mansour's fights because I hold him back. I'm like, wait, what? Wait, I bet the over? Like, no.
Yeah. By the way, and not to pile on poor Cody Brundage, but if anyone's getting mad at a Cody Brundage fight and it's not at Cody Brundage, I don't know what you're doing there. No, but just kidding there. Right. No. But yeah, let's move on to the last fight so we can get Eric back to his busy day. I know he's got a team practice to coach here coming up. We got Tim Elliott versus Kai Asakura. Kicking off the main card. Elliott, a decent underdog here, plus 260. Your favorite Asakura, minus 330. Totals for this 3-rounder, over 2.5 rounds, minus 145, under 2.5 rounds, plus 115, which means they are giving finishing respect to the potential of these air quote little guys, the flyweights. Obviously, they are badasses and bigger flyweights for what it's worth. Asakura, he's technically 0-0 against UFC level southpaws, but he has fought Manel Kape, who, Eric, as you well know, fights from that southpaw stance. I will be combing that sample size later for my southpaw report, but probably more of the grappling is going to be answered for this fight, despite it being the big cage. Eric, I'm gonna go back to you, man, because we only got you for this last one, brother. What do you see for this fight? Obviously, you're familiar with Tim Elliott, who has been in the room, and you've seen Asakura fight before, I'm sure. So, what do you think about with this one,
guys? Again, I mean, I hate to be a broken record, but this is a guy with the better wrestling pedigree in Tim Elliott. Now, here's the thing that worries me about Tim and some of the gripes that not only like I would have with him, but I know Follis would have with him is he becomes too scrambly with his takedowns. I believe if I go back and look, I want to see the fight because I remember distinctly being there. I just want to pull it up. So I quote it. Oh, it was Louis Smoka.
Yeah.
When he fought Louis Smoka, it was Tim would get in these advantageous grappling positions, and it was almost like he was looking to score points in a jiu-jitsu match, going from side control to mount to here to here to here. When that didn't matter, he can literally stay in that position and dominate that position with ground and pound and control time. And he would get almost like he would get bored. He'd be bored in these spots. And knowing Tim and knowing his personality, I guarantee that's probably what was going through his head, because he's all over the place. He's Tim Elliott, right? Awkward MMA for a reason. But if Tim can find these positions and you really hunker down and not get bored, the blueprint has been laid by Alexander Pantoja. And I say that time and time again, because you look at these scenarios as coaches. I look at like when Khabib fought Edson Barboza, we just took that same game plan and applied it to Kevin Lee, and we were able to execute it a little bit better, right? So those same things occur in these fights like this, where there's no reason for Tim to overthink this fight. You look to get in your fit-ins right away. You look to make these scrambles happen, but you look for your backpacks or routes to the back, and then you look to flatten this guy out and try to TKO him with a belly down, or you look to take his neck. So when you see these odds again, I'm like, man, there's a glaring gap in skill when it comes to the wrestling, and that leads me to Tim Elliott in my pick for whatever reason.
I don't hate that at all, man. I don't hate that at all. Spoiler alert, I'm leaning toward that way, but I'm curious what way Mike is leaning toward for Elliott and Asakura. Mike, what do you got for this one, buddy?
Yeah, I was trying every reason, and exactly what he said is perfectly what I kept coming to, and it's a pro and a con, right? So when you look at the Pantoja fight, one thing about Pantoja is he's very systematic. Like he's not really position over submission, but he kind of is sometimes. He waits for the right moment to take your back, and then within a minute he's got your back. The one thing that with Elliott is, as good as he is, as positive as a bonus it is, that he unlocks his hips so well, and he's a very good scrambler. Sometimes you can over scramble and you can pass the exit. And then you're like, all right, I got to take a fucking detour now, and I got to come back the other way. And chances are sometimes you can lose position and put yourself in a detrimental position. And the other thing with Tim Elliott sometimes he can have so much success in one round and come back the next round, and he's like, what are you doing? Like, you're showboating.
Whole different fighter.
And it's like, why can't you just lock in? You just got 3 takedowns in the first round. You controlled them on the ground. Why are you trying to stand with this guy now? You know, so that's the one thing that concerns me. I agree with both of you guys. He has 1,000% the path here, the ability, but he's got to be positioned before submission, not get bored. Like I said, stay in the position, work your way to your positions, because you will keep passing that exit, and then you'll have to detour back. And Asakura is a guy that if you're going to stand with him, I just don't see Elliott having success standing with him. So it's almost like, I hate to say it because he's such a veteran, it's like, you got to show me first. Show me that you're able to be a little patient and a little more systematic, and then just being so chaotic in there where you can actually shoot yourself in the foot. So I hate the odds. I think the odds are horrendous. I think Tim Elliott's a live dog, but I just think sometimes he can't get out of his own way. So I'm going to go Asakura here.
Mike, I love your analysis to the detour. Like, what I'm stealing that from you, man. And again, it's a trust factor thing, and you nailed it. It's like time and time again, I think Tim Elliott is the better fighter, but you get disappointed at times with his situational awareness or his fight IQ. I venture to guess that his relationship now with Chris Brennan, who's been his coach for since Robert Follis and James Krause are no longer in the mix. But I think him and Chris Brennan have a great relationship, and I hope that that's able to kind of shine through in his fight IQ in this fight. But you nailed it, man. It's time and time again. It's like, dude, you just disappoint me with your selections on what you decide to do in this moment. Where did that even come from? I have no idea. But until you show me that you can prove that you can make the right decisions, I'm going to pick the other side. So I get what you're saying.
Yep, absolutely. I'm still going to be leaning toward Elliott. I don't know if he's going to be getting my money at the end of the day, despite those odds. Like, you could do worse than kicking off a unit or less. Even
plus 3.5 won't be bad.
That as well. Because when I look at Elliott, there was one thing I feel like he got knocked out in one fight that he actually won. And it was the Ben Wynn fight. And it really opened me up to, probably one of the more obvious reads is that, when you got a guy dipping head first, I remember when you guys were bringing Flawless before Flawless was there, or we brought in Milicic to coach one of the amateur team practices, and I remember he was saying, when you slip, pretend there's a cement wall next to you. Do you want to slip with your head first, or do you want to have a guard or a shoulder up first? And I thought that was a pretty healthy advice. Say what you will about other advice Pat Milicic might give out, but yeah, as far as fighting, that was a really good advice. And you got Tim Elliott, who goes head first into that cement wall. So you look, it's going to be tie kicks, right? Round kicks that are guys who throw the heavy of that. That's going to be trouble for Tim. And Asakura doesn't do that. I think obviously he's got heavy punches that could land. But I think I don't know if they're underrated, but I think his knees actually have the most potential for catching Tim more than anything. And if Tim can avoid those knees, I think that 3.5 is live, to Mike's point. And again, I don't know how committed I'm going to be, but part of the reason I am going to lead toward Tim, even though he has that Gamrot / Andrew KBG Lee effect that Eric was talking about, where they grappled himself out of advantageous positions just as fast as they grappled himself into advantageous positions. That could be frustrating. I feel like his last win against Sumaderji will probably be very underrated, because Sumaderji was very underrated. You look at Sumaderji's last streak. He actually was working with not just Team Alpha Male, but then going down to the B team in Texas, working on his grappling. He actually did some really cool reversals and did some really cool things in that fight before succumbing to Tim. And then even his fight after that to Charles Johnson in a split that I believe wasn't supposed to be a split against Rich Pozo, who has that kind of curse on the judges where he always gets splits. But you look at it like that was an underrated guy and an underrated performance. So I don't know if Tim will get credit for that. And it's not guaranteeing that he's going to win this fight, but he still showed me more and showed me that he's still there and still capable of harnessing down in spots enough to justify a price tag at plus 260 if you did want to take a shot. I'm not saying I will, but I am leaning toward the Tim Elliott way here. Anything else in this fight, guys, before we give Eric the stage and send him off?
I think we're good.
Eric, I just want to say, man, before you plug anything and before Mike says his goodbyes, man, I just want to say thank you again, obviously. And dude, I know a different job, completely much less of a spotlight, but having to go out week after week with no off season is much tougher than people realize. And I just want to say, man, you make so many of us, and from one of your believers since day one, again, before any of the betting guys or the media guys, I was the first one singing your praises. I do want that credit.
Yes, sir.
But I only say that to say, as one of your longest supporters, dude, you make us so fucking proud, man.
Thank you,
to
brother.
be associated with the gym, to be associated with you in any way. And you never let us down. So thank you, bro, just for your time today, kicking ass on the show. And I know you're going to keep kicking ass. But Mike, what do you got to say before we give it to the stage to Eric?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for coming on, man. I write a lot of articles, and one of the big things for me is always talking about their coaches. And there's very few guys that I always bring up. Faris Sahabi is one of them. Nick Sick is another one. I'm always saying he's a Nick Sick guy. I know you always draw up great blueprints. You're a brilliant mind in MMA. So I appreciate you for giving us the fights that we want to see and giving us the fighters out of your camp that we want to see.
No, I appreciate that, Mike. And I appreciate you guys so much for having me on the show. It was fun to be able to go and step outside my comfort zone a little bit and pull up some notes of maybe some fights I haven't looked at in a while and get my mind working and get my mind off of some other things too. But, I'm a resource for you guys. Anytime you need me on the show, it's a complete honor, and looking forward to some of these good picks.
Absolutely, man. By the way, Mike doesn't know you, and he doesn't give those compliments lightly. I just want to throw that out. He doesn't say nice stuff like that lightly at all, dude. So
I felt it in the East Coast in him too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He don't pull no punches. So that's actually really big coming from him.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Eric. And yeah, anything we can do, and the door is always open. And I need to use that door more. Officially or unofficially, just as friends, because you're such a good friend and a good person, man. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you guys. Have a good rest of your day.
Have a good one.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thanks for having
me.
me.
Great workout.
Later.
All righty. All right. Thanks, Dayton. By the way, Dayton just killing it on double duty, by the way, because I don't want to share too much, but we would just sending our best to all our producer fam, Jared in the mist, Jared. We'll just leave it at that, but I don't want to say too much, but yeah, man. So much shouts to our producers for holding it down. Thank you, Dayton, again, man, for everything today. That was awesome. Let's pick it up now. We're gonna go.
Well, let's take a little pit stop. Let's take a quick little pit
okay.
stop.
All right.
Here.
Okay. Quick pit stop.
We have a couple things we have to do here. First of all, we have to give Dayton credit. He's 1-0.
That's right. That's right.
He's 1-0.
Dayton's dog of the week.
Dayton's dog of the week came through. I owe you guys a shot, right? I got to go get my alcohol. So talk for a minute so I can go get my alcohol.
All right. I am going to be curious. Dayton, don't tell us if we already went over the landmine, which is the Dayton's dog of the week for this week, because I know you're going to be rolling your red hot momentum, sir. But at the end, we're going to cue you up. But can you at least tell? Was it hard to pick this week? Where you just feeling confident? You're like, I'm going to throw a dart, man. Or how'd you feel about this week without giving away the pick?
So I'll be honest. This week, it's kind of tough. I might ask if I can retire.
I know the dog.
Wow. No. So, anyways, we'll get to it. Obviously, I don't know. We'll get to it later. But it was definitely tough to pick. When I told Mike, he kind of gave me a oh. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
All right. There's a lot of live dogs, and you're not too bad. You're not the best at hiding your hand. So I'm guessing it's on the prelims from what you just said, because my fucking mind has to work that way. But we'll see. We'll have to find out to the end of the show there. I'm excited. But yeah, you cashed the Meconico. All right, we got Mike here on deck. So what do we bet? Oh, it was that very fight. It was Brundage. Yeah, that's right. I missed my under. I missed the bet, but I guess I got this one. But yeah, I don't feel great about it.
Little tequila. I'm gonna do a shot of tequila out of the bottle.
Wow.
You know what's crazy, guys? I told him on the phone, I don't even drink. This guy's gonna turn me into an alcoholic. Yeah, and it's crazy. It's crazy because I've had such great weeks, like with my wagering.
You're the winner.
And it seems like the one bet I always lose is the fucking drink bet. I don't understand it. So anyway, here's to turning me into a fucking alcoholic.
Yeah. If you looked at Mike's betting record and my betting record,
Christ.
That was beautiful. If you looked at Mike's betting record and my betting record, be like, who's doing the shots between these two? Everybody would get it wrong every time. They would be like, oh, Dan's doing the shots.
I just don't understand it.
Because your slate's been just fucking red hot since we're not tooting our own horn. Mike has been completely honest about the slump he was on before. Didn't even have to be, and he's always forthcoming about that. But there's no denying the facts, which are the man's been red hot. And it's a sketchy Cody Brundage fight with sketchy scorecards. And did he complain once? No, he just took a shot. Look at that. What a champ. What a champ.
You know what the crazy thing was too? I didn't bet Cody Brundage.
Yeah, no, smart.
I didn't put any money on him, but it seems like every fucking time I bet you, I lose.
And I bet the under on that fight, and I lost the bet. So again, I actually lose the bets that count. You win the bets that count. But when it comes to the drinking bets, so far I'm getting a lead on those, which is not really, it doesn't do much for me, and it turns you into an alcoholic. So maybe it's a lose-lose.
Yeah, exactly.
We're doing it for you guys, folks. We're doing it for you guys. Should we just, for the sake of the timestamps, do we keep consistency here and knock the rest of the prelims and just recap everything at the end?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, let's do that. I think that'd be the easiest. So, all right, Dayton, back on, jumping back on for the prelims, folks. Thank you again, checking the timestamps, and thank our awesome producer, because I've done the timestamps before. They're not easy, folks. They're not fun. I'm sure they have easier ways to do it, and I'm sure I did it the hard way. But we've got King Green headlining the prelims, and he faces Carlos Diego Ferreira. Minus 155 for Carlos Diego Ferreira CDF, plus 130 to come back on your underdog, Bobby King Green. Totals set at 2.5, over 2.5 rounds, minus 115, under 2.5 rounds, also minus 115. Basically a pick 'em because this could go to decision. This could be finished. I feel like maybe a little bit more on the over I would have expected. So does that mean there's value on the over? Maybe not, because it's still a 2.5. And Bobby Green can suddenly just not be alive. I've been one of the biggest Bobby Green defenders. I love his style. Despite people getting caught up with the hand down optics and the shit talking, I really love his striking style, and he's always traditionally done well against grapple first fighters. But again, similar to perhaps trying to learn from my mistakes with the banking on guys being durable forever, like the Anders over, right? Or even with the stylistic reads, like with the Robert Whittaker going, well, traditionally he does well against grapple first fighters. And now we really can't say that. Even the most ardent defenders as I, and the most hipster defenders as I, can't really say that, can we, right? And both those questions posed with another guy I love, and Bobby Green. Does he do as well against grapple first fighters anymore, right? And is he as durable as he was? Well, he certainly isn't as durable as he was, but is he durable enough to beat a guy like CDF? Where CDF, and I know I'm taking a lot of the meat off the bone here, I'm gonna be just gonna flow with this one since I already started with the ball. But with CDF, I noticed, Mike, and you can rebut me here, is that he gets tired, and if Bobby Green is even close to not prime, but his abilities, can he at least point his way to a decision, tire a Diego Ferreira who we've seen get tired? And the thing is, we've also seen Diego Ferreira win in rounds 3. We've also seen him school like Russian dudes down the stretch to a decision. So when we zoom out, what is it? What is it? Well, unless it's a prime Dustin Poirier, where there was a decent amount of grappling in that furious one-round war, by the way, it's been heavy grappling-based fights, which you wouldn't think, but I say this all the time, where even wrestlers get tired when wrestling. So obviously the same applies for jiu-jitsu guys, because people can get a little carried away with the stereotype. We're like, this guy's boxed forever, kickboxed forever. He can stay on his bike. I'm much more open to that, right? But I don't feel that translates as much to the ground arts, because it takes a lot of energy. And even wrestlers and MMA guys like Chael Sonnen himself will be like, you can't wrestle for 5 rounds. You need to take your breaks, even when you're on some juice. So Diego Ferreira, if you look at it, it's actually people who grappled him and wrestle him. Even Beneil Dariush, who is really good jiu-jitsu and developed as a striker. He's also underrated wrestling. And from that first fight back in the tough Brazil to their rematch in the Apex years later, it was being the better wrestler and able to stay out of the submissions. And that's, even though Bobby Green has some underrated ground stuff that I'll probably repost this week, I don't feel that's Bobby Green's archetype. So I guess I say all this to say that as much as I love dogs, as much as I love Bobby Green here, I'm going with CDF. Do you, please feel free to add on and feel free to disagree, sir. What do you got, Mike?
Yeah, it's funny because I'm like you, man. There's something about Bobby Green's. I can't call him King Green. I just can't. It's hard for me to keep.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
It's tough. But I want to respect him. So King Green. I love his style. I love his flashiness, the way he moves, the way he kind of would roll with punches, and even though his hands are down and stuff, he kind of just. He kind of anticipates things, and he usually would anticipate things the right way. But at the end of the day, that's a young man's game. Reaction time is everything. And as you get older, your reaction times, even if it's by the naked eye, you can't see it. It gets less and less and less. And the more you get knocked out, the more you get finished, and the more minutes and rounds you put in, it gets less and less. And your reaction times aren't there. So your brain is telling you that, like, yeah, I could still do these things, but you're a slight centimeter behind. And that's what I think the trap that Bobby Green's falling is. He's not going to evolve. He's not going to be a more serious fighter. He's not going to stop talking trash and keep his hands up. Like, he's going to fight the way he fights. And I think as you get older, especially in this division, that can kind of be the death of you. Now, when you look at Diego, you're looking at a guy who, you grapple first. He's got a good Brazilian jiu-jitsu game and stuff like that. But he also is a good striker. He does have some decent hands. And when I look at this fight, I just look at a guy that is – I feel like a little more sturdy right now in his career. Both guys, obviously, I like this fight because these are the kind of fights these guys should be fighting. They shouldn't be fighting prospects. This is a good fight. 2 aging veterans that still have some skill set in the tank, and it could, pan out to be a really good fight. But I just keep going back to Bobby Green making these mistakes. And just looking like that's not something that would have happened to him 5 years ago. That's not something that would happen to him 3 years ago, and they're happening now. And I think it's going to happen again. And I think that Diego has a good shot finishing this fight inside the distance.
Excellent. Yeah, I agree. It's had to agree too. One thing I also will add is that Diego Ferreira is a guy who can also be losing and then win out of nowhere, right? Like I know against Michael Johnson. Man. Right. And I know against Michael Johnson, that's Michael Johnson's MO, right? But it's usually by submission. right? Which you think it would have been against CDF. But if you go back and watch that fight, it's really good. It's probably a really good highlight for Saif Saud, to be honest, because he gives excellent advice where it's one of those times where he's just like reading where he goes, he's like, no, throw the double jab first or something like that, which again, double jab is like cheating in MMA because people don't realize how useful it is. Like once you start using a double jab, even if non-committal, just to get reactions, folks, try it in sparring. You'll be surprised how much like, oh, I have initiative and options now because I decided to take it with a double jab. And he throws a right hand behind it. And just, again, it shows you're listening to your coach, shows the coach has the right idea, shows the fighter can execute, and coming from behind around where he was getting schooled, right? And I know, again, that's Michael Johnson, but you look at Bobby Green and what he's kind of turned into, right? Where now he's a guy who you could rely on his durability. It's just, it was getting robbed in the scorecards because judges couldn't read the shoulder rolls was your main worry. Well, now it's not. Bobby Green is getting finished all of a sudden, even when he's up or, out of nowhere kind of shots. So it's like, man, it's tough. The market kind of scared me because I was seeing money come in on Green, which didn't make sense. But I felt like minus 150 was a good number because I think he opened at higher. What did Diego Ferreira open at? Not too much higher, minus 163. I fired at minus 150 at 2 units.
Great price.
Yeah, I just figure, I by the way, I also
Bobby
fired
Green too. You got to remember, Bobby Green doesn't have major finishing equity.
Yeah. Again, and that. Your mileage may vary, but for me, playable chalk, as far as playable, when I say playable chalk, I mean, I'm not talking about parlays. I'm talking about a straight play. And if when I have a bigger bankroll, if you have a bigger bankroll, perhaps that expands, and I don't blame you for it, although that could be a dangerous game in MMA. I always consider around the neighborhood of minus 150 playable chalk. And I have 3 straight plays so far. Right. And all of them have about total of 2 unit exposure. This one's just 2 unit across the board, win anyway. I'll recap this again, but I forgot to say I put 1.5 units on DDP because he went all the way up to plus 205. I actually missed a plus 210 mark, but I grabbed him at plus 205, and then I sprinkled about 0.5 units on rounds 3, 4, and 5 at high numbers so total like 2 unit exposure for him as well. I just want to add that in there.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got, speaking of potential live dogs, we'll see how Mike feels about this one. GM3, Gerald Meerschaert versus Michal Oleksiejczuk. Oleksiejczuk minus 225 for the Polish fighter up at middleweight and plus 185 for the comeback on your dog, Gerald Meerschaert. Over is a set for 1.5 rounds in a 3-round fight at minus 105 with the under 1.5. Minus 225. And I like that because that means, mathematically round 2 is the sweet spot. And well, that tends to be the hot round for Gerald Meerschaert because he is more of a comeback fighter. And that is usually more apparent against fighters who are 1-round fighters like Shabazian, who I don't want to even say that about Shabazian because he's been showing improvements under our guy, Eric Nixick, credit where it's due. But that was a round 2 submission. And to tip my hand here, because people who know me already know where I'm going. I'm a GM3 dog guy all day. I know he could lose this fight early, but at plus 185, I put 1.5 units on him and sprinkled on a couple other props that I'll give in a second. But I'm taking up too much time here. Don't be afraid to shut down my dreams. Don't be afraid to shit in my cereal, Mike. Let me have it. Dude, you got Oleksiejczuk in the southpaw versus southpaw matchup. Real quick. GM3, 2-4 against the UFC level southpaws, but he should be 3-3 because he beat Eric Anders in that striking match. You go back and watch the fight. And Oleksiejczuk is 1-2-1 with a no contest. That no contest was Khalil Roundtree against Khalil Roundtree back in the day. It was his debut, and he popped for like EPO in that fight. And the losses were by submission to OSP. And I'll get the other names for you here in a second. He lost to OSP. Was it Krzysztof Jotko? I believe. No, Krzysztof Jotko was sorry, folks. I should have this ready for you.
Jocko, you know who Jocko was? Jocko was dating, dude. He was like the Phantom, bro. He was always on the roster. He was consistently winning, right?
Yep. Yeah.
But
Yep.
you never heard like we should call him fucking Dayton Yako. That's what we should call him.
Dayton, how's your breakdancing? Yako, the most entertaining thing Yako would do is when he won, he would do that breakdancing move. I forget what it's called, the windmill or whatever. Can you do any breakdancing, Dayton?
Check your Twitter later. I'll send you a video of me dancing.
Yeah, send me one.
Oh my God, you're right. He is Jocko. Oh my, what a call, Mike.
Bro, I used to love when Jocko would fight because I'd be like, bro, this is a guy who like the casuals don't know about. We know about him. But the casuals, they don't know how good and how solid of a fighter he is. So he used to be my guy. I used to bet him all the time.
On his come up. Yeah.
On his come up. So when I look at Meerschaert now, like the one fight, like it's easy to say, yeah, Meerschaert, he's getting older, his chin's going and stuff like that. It's like sometimes, yeah, he's his kickboxing is good. He's trained under Duke Rufus for a while, so he does have kickboxing, but his bread and butter is his grappling. But if I could erase the RDR fight out of my mind, it'd be an easy pick for me to go against him. But after watching him against RDR, he was winning that fight, dude. He was winning that fight against RDR.
Southpaw versus Southpaw there as well, by the way.
Winning that fight against RDR. And I keep saying to myself, like, yeah, I mean, he makes mistakes and he can be chinned and he's been dropped by fucking jabs at certain points of his time. But if he gets you to the floor and he puts you in the right position, especially against a guy like Lord Michal, he can absolutely, he can finish him. But I don't know, man. I hate this fight. I think the price is ludicrous. I think there's no way he should be this much of a dog. But I just have a feeling, bro. I have a feeling that Lord Michael's going to fucking catch him with a shot.
Now, is Michal Oleksiejczuk back with the Fighting Nerds? I know that was a big thing for me last time as far as picking him. But I know he only did a couple weeks out there. It wasn't like too crazy. And then again, it was Dricus Du Plessis, right? I mean, that was the lowest bar. He's a free win, basically. But let me see where he's been at camp here. I didn't quite get this far. And I still had to comb through for a Southpaw report, which, by the way, the other one was Kyle Bohio. Both his losses were round 2 submissions against Bohio and OSP. His win was against Sam Alvey on that massive winning streak, round 1 TKO, which, again, he could do here. That's his winning condition here for what it's worth. You got another aged Southpaw, who, by the way, Sam Alvey's part of the Southpaw record for Gerald Meerschaert too, because GM3 went 1-1 with Alvey on the regional. So that is a part of my record for what it's worth, folks. It looks like he's with the Fighting Nerds for this camp as well. So perhaps that's it, and I'm sure the Fighting Nerds are going to have a good game plan for him, but we really didn't get to see any of the cardio questions answered, right? And kind of who you are is who you are. And the one time you do look like a machine for 3 rounds, you pop for a literal EPO. I don't know how much I don't know how much a round 1 TKO victory we've learned over Michal Oleksiejczuk. And again, we might not learn much more, Mike, because he might come out here and do it again. But if I'm taking GM3 as a dog is just auto betting, and you're ahead if you're betting GM3 in general because of his odds over his career, why get off now, man? I mean, he still wants to set records. He's the all-time submissions and finishes, rear naked choke leader. I think he's all-time finish leader in the middleweight division. And you're getting him for plus 185 against a do or die fighter. I mean, it makes too much sense. So I'm cool with losing the money. It's fine. I never feel bad about it for a GM3 fight because I always feel it's value. And I feel like, again, the numbers will tell you you're ahead if you bet him. So I also took GM3 by sub plus 350, which I'm going to have in the round robin. But when I'm really confident in a leg, I also want to have a little bit on that at plus 350. I put a Scottie Pippen, a 0.33U on there. And to finish with my number 17 with a bullet, baby, 0.117U on round 2 submission plus 1,200. So a total, again, that brings me to another, again, a total of a 2-unit exposure for the 3 fighters I'm on. DDP, CDF, and GM3, and they all coincidentally have those crazy three-letter names. How about that, Mike?
I will tell you this from a DraftKings perspective. If you look at the prices in DraftKings, they're 9,000 and 7,200. There's no way that Oleksiejczuk should be 9,000. When you're talking about 9,000 tier fighters, yes, you're talking about finishers and stuff like that, but this isn't a guy who you can absolutely trust. And you go down to Meerschaert at 7,200. He's a borderline punt play at 7,200. So, I mean, from a draft, forget about from a picking perspective, from a draft perspective, DraftKings, if you're looking for a money saver and a flyer. Like, listen, Elliott can come out here and knock him out. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to score 90 points. You know what I mean? Depending on when it happens, how it happens. I mean, I highly doubt he's going to get the bonus and end it really, really quick. But when you're looking at Meerschaert, any which way but loose, if he wins, he's going to blow the cover off that 7,200. So from a DraftKings perspective, if you're looking on rostering this fight, it's Meerschaert.
I don't hate that at all, man. I don't hate that at all from the price perspective that you laid out. I appreciate you also giving that for the audience. I know we got a lot of fantasy players, Mike, and I know you do very well. You gave out some nice winning. I don't want to step on it, but you gave out some nice winning lineups as well. You've been killing it on literally all angles. Again, I'm not just blowing smoke here, folks, to my co-host. He's been killing it. We'll get to that later, though. All right, well, let's move on from that fight. Let's go to the WMMA fight. Perhaps another live dog that could have my attention. We'll see. We got Jessica Andrade taking on Loopy Godinez. Godinez minus 150, Andrade plus 125. A little bit of two-way action, although the favorite does seem to be holding, and I suspect the favorite will hold. Over is set at 2.5 rounds for this three-rounder at minus 325. Of course, they're juicing the hell out of these women's overs. That's actually a lighter over in the actually grand scheme of things with the way they've been pricing it, folks. Under 2.5 rounds, plus 250. Now, even though Andrade has shown that she can kind of collapse out of nowhere almost as it would seem, I don't disagree with the over being so chalked as far as it being favored. I mean, I don't like it being that chalked, obviously. However, if we look at it, Jessica Andrade, she's going back down to strawweights, which I think is, something to keep in mind. Now, her last time she was at strawweight, she lost, or no, she didn't lose, but she had a sketchy, was it a sketchy split, or was it a sketchy split to Marina there? Yeah, it was the sketchy split to Marina that could have went for Marina. That's why I was saying she lost, because it could have went for Marina.
Yeah, should have went to Marina Rodriguez.
Yeah, I'm very sympathetic to people who have Marina Rodriguez in that fight.
I did. That's how I remember.
Okay, well, you're not. I didn't, but I can non-biasedly say that I'm very sympathetic to that for what it's worth, Mike. And I didn't even have her. That was last time she was at the weight. Of course, she also nuked Mackenzie Dern, which I was on her for that. That might have been the last time I was on Andrade. I don't think there was a great line to be on her against Rodriguez, and if I was, I sure as shit was scared off because of that fight. Obviously, she goes and loses to a prospect, Natalia Silva, and then she loses to Jasmine Jasovicius, who are two of the legit prospects, by the way, top prospects at 125. So I don't know how much you want to condemn her. She's had a real sketchy loss streak, but part of the reason why I was defending that, taking her for like close to 3 plus 3 to 1 against Dern, was because she was in the Dern Divorce Club where she was going through a lot of personal stuff, right? And going through a lot of camp changes. And I know we can take interviews with a grain of salt, but when the results tend to kind of match it, I tend to put a little more weight behind it, right? And again, I know she lost her last 2, but if you look at it, she kind of was supposed to lose those fights, and she wasn't looking in victory or defeat. She wasn't arguably looking as bad as she was during that like 3 or 4 fight stretch between Blanchfield and Tatiana Suarez, right? Which again, Suarez was another fight where she was probably supposed to lose that as well. I picked Suarez specifically by second round sub in that fight, despite being an Andrade fan, right? So I know when to pick against her for the most part. But I will say that her air quote excuses also correlate with another fighter we were talking about the other week, which was one of her main training partners, Carol Hossa, who remember hearing Carol Hossa, we breaking her down the same way. She has these sketchy performances. She's not, she's striking when she's not supposed to. She's grappling when she's not supposed to. We're not grappling enough here, not striking enough there. What's going on? And if you look, the timeline matches up where they're having their sketchy fights because they were both dealing with similar things. And now they're camped together, reported, they got that situation settled. So does that mean Andrade is going to win here? Of course not. She's a dog for a reason, folks. I just want to put some added context behind that, if you know what I'm saying, Mike. And curious what you have for this fight.
Yeah, when I look at this fight, people don't understand. Jessica Andrade isn't that old. People look at her like she's this aging, but she's 33 years old. Now, does she have miles on her tires? Yes. But she's fought everybody. She's beaten everybody. She's lost to everybody. Like, she's not one of these fighters where, she beats who she should be, and then she loses to everyone that she's not. She has beaten some elite fighters, and she has lost to some fighters that she shouldn't have lost to. You know, and that probably boils down to age and damage and cage hours and stuff like that. But when you look at her, like, she does have one style, and I call her Jessica Frazier. Like, she reminds me of like Joe Frazier. She tries to get inside the pocket, but the thing with her, she is small for the division. She does understand she needs to get underneath. She needs to come inside in the pocket. And if you know you have to do that from fight to fight, you become an expert at it. You become very good at entering the fray, you know, and she has done that. On the other side, you see someone in Loopy who, when she's dialed in, when she turns it on, she looks like she's ready for, you know, a top 5 fight. Like, she looks like she is ready, from her grappling to even her striking. She can be violent in spots. She's relentless with her takedowns when she's locked in. But then there's certain fights where you're like, what the fuck is Loopy doing? Almost like Tim Elliott. Like, what is she doing here? But I can't rest my laurel on just that alone with her, because Tim Elliott's a little bit older. He's kind of set in his ways, where Loopy, yeah, she's coming into her own though, but she's still 31 years old. She's still young. She still has, you know, some upside, and she still has a ceiling that she probably hasn't hit yet. And I just look at the upside as far as the matchup here. Like, Andrade is going to have to get inside. She's going to have that success for 15 minutes inside on Loopy, without getting locked down, without getting taken down, with, you know, she has to defend the wrestling. Like, there's a lot of things she's going to have to defend. She just can't be all offense with someone like Loopy, because Loopy will counter her and take her down, or Loopy will, you know, spit out some offensive herself. So I think that in itself is going to slow down Andrade a little bit and make her a little bit more telegraphed. I think if Loopy comes in locked in with the right game plan, and she continuously runs downhill, I think she could look north of you know, minus 250. In this fight. I love Loopy in this spot. You know, I do. I love Loopy in this spot. I think Andrade has that X factor, you know, she has the X factor moments still. She always will. But I think minute for minute, you know, round by round, to me, if Loopy comes in with the right game plan, this is her fight to maybe 30-27.
Yeah, I definitely see that path, and I think that's why she's favored. And I think that's why she's favored appropriately, because she's not like a 2-1 favorite, which I think would be too, right. You know, you're getting too high at that point. I think even Louis backers would agree on that. However, and again, this is about the same. This is about the same commitment as my Tim Elliott lean, right? Where even if I do settle on this side, I'm not even sure if I want to bet it, despite being on the dog. Now, the way I have my card booked out, and because I'm in bankroll building mode, so I really got to limit myself. Except this card, there's too much good stuff that I really like, to where I don't want to limit my plays and fuck up my sizing. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to limit my overall slate. You know, which is why I still did somewhat, which for me, 1.5 units is big. I know you got a lot of cappers out there throwing like 5 to 10 units on, like,
well, they say they are
WMMA.
They say they are.
Yeah. Well, you know what I mean, but like, you know, I'm not that I'm throwing anything crazy, but for me, big, you know, for me, it's big. But that's also because, again, I really want to limit myself and get more back down to the 7 to 9 unit exposure averages per card, where I've been creeping more to 11 and 14. If I'm being honest for these bigger cards, which is a no for me. So I've only allowed myself another unit, right? So I'm being real. And I don't even know if I want either way. Like with a Tim Elliott, with Tim Elliott, he's a big enough number where maybe I can still throw him in a round robin, right? And I don't have to fully commit. If I need a round robin leg, it's like, okay, if he hits, he hits. If he doesn't, I don't really lose too much off that exposure. But with Andrade, it's the same commitment, because it's more of a show me spot. Although Godinez has shown us much more than Asakura, which sounds crazy to say, but Godinez has quietly put together a large UFC sample. However, it's our job to be critical. So if we want to be critical of that sample, if you look at it, she is beating the fighter she's supposed to beat. She's more unkinder way to say it. She's beating a lot of cans in there. And then if you look at it, even in the victories, not just the defeats, the common thread when we zoom out again, it's fighters who can grapple are either beating her or at the worst taking her to sketchy split decisions. Even Jessica Penne, as washed, as little initiative, as little impactful offense as she offers, that fight was way close. I know it's a split, but so it was close, but it's even closer than what that says on paper, if that makes sense. Like, it was
but
the
one thing that Jessica Penne aces at is grappling.
It is. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it was more of an optics. It was
Yeah.
more of an optics win. Like she got like another power. She gets her power bombs and she'll do this cool shit. That's awesome, right?
Yep.
But it's like, and the judges should be scoring it. But it's like, you know, we know the judges, they're not scoring takedowns, even with impact like they should be. It's not as much as like striking and stuff, for example. And we know Andrade, she's a high impact striker. Now, I think more of the minutes, while still getting moments, like we said, because Loopy's got good optics as well, but she's also going to be more of a minutes winner. So she's the deserved favorite in this spot. I definitely won't try to talk anybody off of that or her, but I will be leaning toward Andrade because, again, I went back and also watched that last fight with the Palastri girl. Now, Palastri could have a higher ceiling than we know, but again, her most recent fight is still a girl coming off the Contender Series, right? Who really didn't have crap to offer her on the ground. And even Palastri was landing more strikes off of her back, like we were saying with Usman and Chimaev. Like Palastri was actually, and Senko's noting it smartly, like Palastri is actually landing more offense off of her back in those rounds. Not that it was enough even to make a hipster argument, but it was enough to even, to make it a talking point, right? And in round 3, she's just getting pieced up. And she's not fighting as smart as she should. Now, commentary noted that she said she had to poop before that round. So I don't know how much of it had to do with throwing Loopy off to where she wasn't fighting to her game plan, Maybe she didn't want to exert herself in the grappling. I don't know, man. I'm not going to speculate too far. And I'm also not going to crucify her too far. But these are things you got to worry about, to where if Andrade even shows up to a modicum of where she is, she's not old. She does have 40 fights, though, which is triple the amount of Godinez, even though she's only 2 years older. But if Andrade can show up to, even like operating at her post-prime level, I still think this is a tough fight for Godinez that it honestly scares me off no matter who I like on this side, even if I did like the Godinez side. Like, that's how sketched out of this fight I feel. So in that case, put me down for the dog. We'll see where I officially land or how hard I land.
You want to make this a shot bet?
Let's put this on the table for a shot bet. Yeah, let's keep it. Let's keep it at the top of the queue for that. Is this the first one we've disagreed on so far?
No, it's
not actually. It's not. We
disagreed on Elliott and Asakura,
as well as Neal and Prates too.
Yeah, but I don't know if I want to.
That'll be fun because it's a fucking dice roll. But yeah, we can. This might be a good fight for it. Let's move on to the next fight though. Alexander Hernandez versus Chase Hooper. Of course, Chase Hooper is going to be favored in this spot, minus 330. Alexander Hernandez plus 260. The comeback on him as an underdog. Over 2.5 rounds, minus 125. Under 2.5 rounds, minus 105. Which I don't disagree with any of these odds. I've taken shots to fade Chase Hooper, not out of disrespect. I've respected his progressions, and he keeps proving his supporters right. Whereas Hernandez, I picked him in certain spots, like against Thiago Moises. Because that was more of a fade on Moises than a believer on Hernandez. But Hernandez is a guy. I'm going to be a little greedy here. By the way, Hernandez 4-1 against UFC level southpaws, but there's a big asterisk. He should be 3-2. Of course, is that fight against Francisco Masarandu Butronaldo. Classic Texas scorecards, right? Terrible. It was like 30-27 the other way. It should have been, if anything. So yeah, he should be 3-2, but he technically sits at 4-1. But the thing on Hernandez is pacing and panicking. And round 2 has been a hot round for me to cash on. We talked about hot round 2s for Gerald Meerschaert, right? Being a good hot round for him, being a bad hot round for Oleksiejczuk. Well, round 2 is a good hot round for Hooper. Hooper's like a guy who's going to be looking for finishes in every round, to be honest. So that's a little easy or unfair to say. But more to the point, it's more of a hot round negative for Hernandez, that Moicano round 2 without even looking. I played Holloway round 2, which, by the way, Holloway had a real I don't even need to say it's a hipster argument, because I feel like he had a decent argument just under the judging criteria to have won that fight, by the way. But it was a very close fight, much more closer than it realizes. And then what was some other round 2s? Oh, Billy Quarantine round 2. That was a nice little cash there as well. Drew Dober finished him in round 2 via strikes. So yeah, I don't like the minus 330. I don't like a lot for parlays, especially with the parlays burning me last week, right? And it was another minus 330 I was on, even though that minus 330 flew through and fluffy. It was the over that fucked me, right? needless to say, I'm not like jumping to bet with parlays, especially with my aforementioned limits I'm putting on myself. So you got to get creative, and what's thankfully accounted for within these limits doesn't count for the unit I have left over, because I'm going big. I'm going to go at least a half unit there on Chase Hooper round 2. I'm waiting for better numbers to drop, and then I'm going to do a 0.33 unit on Hooper in round 3 to pick up the pieces should it go that long. And you can bet your ass Hooper round 2 is going to be in the round robin this week. I know I got greedy on there. I didn't take much on the main card with you and Eric. I was kind of putting you guys, so forgive me for going heavy on some of these, Mike, but I was passionate about this take. Feel free to shut my cereal. What do you got on this one, bud?
So I'll always have a soft spot for Alex Hernandez, just for the mere fact that when he was first coming up and he debuted against Dariush, one of my biggest things in my article was, this kid's very athletic. He's very explosive, and Dariush tends to come out cold. And I said, if Dariush is kind of lulled to sleep early on, this kid can catch him with something. And sure enough, he did. And everybody in my Discord they cashed huge with DraftKings because he was like this.
Nice.
He was like the prince of the night.
Cash.
It was big cash. But then I bought into him a little bit. I started buying into him, and I started seeing exactly what you said, panicking. And he's one that doesn't have a good poker face. When he's frustrated, when he's tired, when he seems like he's kind of packing it in, he doesn't have a good poker face. Like, you can tell by his facial expressions, like he's breaking. Like, here he goes, he's breaking. And at the end of the day, when I look at him, I say, this is a shame because he's got a lot of talent. He's a good athlete. He's got good wrestling. He's got big power. He's an intelligent kid. You can listen to the way he talks. He's very well spoken. Like, he's got the tools, but he can't figure out how to functionalize his conditioning. There's no first, second, third, fourth gear. It's first, and then all of a sudden he's in fucking reverse. Like, he maxes out, puts his pedal to the floor. He doesn't know how to functionalize. And if he learns how to functionalize his cardio and his conditioning, Alex Hernandez can be a pretty good fighter. And when you look at Chase Hooper on the other side, it's a guy, and I hate to say it, I just don't believe in him, dude. I don't believe that he's like championship material. I don't know what it is about him. I don't know if I said the same thing about Jamal Hill. I was one of the only people on the top of the mountain screaming, this guy's smoke and mirrors, dude. He's not a champion. Like, this guy he just doesn't have championship pedigree. Like, when I talk about fighters, I don't put Jamal Hill in a conversation, be like, oh yeah, bro, remember Jamal Hill? Like, I don't consider him a championship pedigree. The same thing with Chase Hooper. Despite the run he's on, you got to look at who he's fighting. I mean, he fought an aging Jimmy Miller, fought Clay Guida, great win against Borshchev. He was able to drop him, with a jab, which is uncharacteristic of him and uncharacteristic of, no one ever thought in a million years that Borshchev would get dropped by Chase Hooper in a striking match. But I think people are looking into that way too much. Then the Levitt fight, then Fiore, then Garcia. It's like, who's he really, really, really fought? Like, he hasn't really fought anybody. So who's to say, like, Alexander Hernandez can't go in and ruin that winning streak? He can't win this fight. I'm going to hate myself for saying this, but I think Alexander Hernandez is going to beat Chase Hooper on Saturday.
Wow. I have so much respect. I even though I would love to make this the shot bet, but no. I've just got respect for this pick. Wow.
I just feel, you know what it is? When I look at the optics of it, I think Hooper's got a great chin. I think we can agree on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but if you look at when he gets hit, it looks like he's got a great chin, because when he gets hit, he's so straight up and he kind of like goes back. I don't know. I feel like if Alexander Hernandez comes in with the proper game plan, he can actually function. He can land some big shots and kind of bully ball him in there. I mean, mind you, he's got to watch his limbs. He can't get stupid. He can't get into these grappling exchanges with him. He's got to kind of keep his distance, stay out of traps. But I really do believe that he's got the explosiveness, he's got the wherewithal, and he's got the ability to beat Chase Hooper here.
Do you think he does it inside the distance?
I honestly think I think he's going to probably have to do it inside the distance. I don't think I mean, I don't know, bro, but I got a gut feeling about this fight. Since they announced it, I was like, I have a feeling that this is a spot where like Alexander Hernandez is going to surprise everybody. I don't know why, dude.
So here are the odds, which are kind of in line with what you're saying, because decision is the highest of all the routes. It's like plus 650, which is a nice number. But to your point, yeah, let's be honest. even if it went to decision, something probably went wrong for Chase Hooper, but he's also so offensively potent. You're like, he has so much offensive output that, you know, he's got to be on those cards and live on the cards as well. So yeah, maybe it is inside the distance. And it's funny, the TKO prop for both guys is plus 550. It's the same price. However, Hernandez inside the distance is plus 510. So you might as well take Hernandez inside the distance if your house allows it, rather than having to choose, Parker, between, you know, submission and freaking knockout if you like the Hernandez side.
Yeah, I'm not telling you guys to run to the window and bet this. I'm not.
Sure.
This is more. Honestly, this ain't a systematic play. This is more of a gut feeling. Like, I just have a feeling that there's going to be listen, fighters lose all the time, but then they come back and like, wow, what a great win. Then maybe they go on another losing streak. I just feel like this is a spot where Chase Hooper's kind of due for a loss, and Hernandez could be that guy to hand it to him. Like I said, this is a gut play. This ain't a systematic play.
Yeah. No, that's a great caveat, because this is, you know, it's one of those things where, and even if you have like work to show for it, which we always do, and will at least bring somewhat of a case, but that's a strong caveat, because we talk about these picks all the time. Like me with Park, like I'm going to, you know, probably look like an idiot here, but you could also look like a genius, because you know, it's one of those spots, maybe not directly comparable, because you're actually backing not just high numbers, but you're backing a more of a sample size guy, which is always important for someone like me, right? And Alexander Hernandez. So you're actually betting on a more known quantity at high plus money, which, you know, I hate to use the dreaded value word or CLV or anything that is talk that doesn't involve cashing the bet at the end of the day, the most important thing. But these are caveats you got to take in mind. And from time to time, I'm going to make those picks. From time to time, Mike's going to make those picks. And this is just one of those times for you, Mike, right?
Yep. Yeah. You know what I keep going back to too? I just keep going back to his retreat. Like, he retreats a lot. Like, he does. He's got a lot of movement. Not the prettiest movement in the world, but he does have a lot of movement, especially when he feels like he's in trouble. He has a lot of movement. And Chase Hooper's just not a guy who knows how to like cut off the cage and kind of stalk you and mirror you. He's more like, you got to get inside on him so he can put his paws on you and try to drag it down. Like, I feel like he can just give him like fits, but what's probably going to happen is he's going to probably look good until he doesn't anymore. And then the poker face is going to droop, and we're going to be like, here we fucking go. He's going to get submitted, you know?
Yep. So they might have added another fight. We'll get to it, and we'll don't worry about it, Dayton. If we don't have that Saizando Donchenko, I'll touch on that at the end. But they have 14 fights on this card, so that's in plus the guests. So we're already kind of running long, folks. So thank you for sticking with us. Hit the like, comment, please. I didn't say that enough. Please hit the like, comment, share this out. By the way, share it out. Tag, you know, Madlab, myself, or the podcast, especially at Dogger Pass Podcast on Twitter. We're trying to get more follows there. And if you tag the podcast or myself at Dan Tom MMA, I'll give you guys some retweets and stuff as well. If you tag us out sharing, we're really trying to pump up this episode and get it out, especially with having such an awesome guest like Eric. That being said, let's try to speed break down through the rest of these as fast as we can. What say you, Mike? Starting with Edson Barboza versus Drakkar Klose. Edson Barboza minus 150 favorite. Drakkar Klose plus 125, your underdog, over 2.5 rounds, minus 170, under 2.5 rounds, plus 140. I'll be honest, I'm very familiar with these fighters, which is part of the reason why I didn't dive deep into this one yet. This is one of the ones that I'll be up front and honest if I didn't tape before the show. That being said, I am familiar with them, and I also not sure I want anything to do with this, because I feel like you could, even though I'm not a big Drakkar Klose fan, this feels like a Drakkar Klose decision slog upset spot. But I feel like it should be closer to a pick 'em, even though the lines aren't necessarily far away. They're actually kind of close as it is. So I'm having a weird, confused radar despite knowing these guys, Mike. Can you set me straight here? Do you I'm a big Barboza fan, don't get me wrong, but does the line surprise you, or did they get it right?
I mean, I think Barboza should be the slight favorite in this spot. I do like Drakkar Klose. I think he's a fine fighter. I actually think he's pretty underrated, to be honest with you. But there's just something about Barboza. Like, you don't realize how hard this guy cracks until you're in there with him. It's almost like shocking, you know. And even though he is getting older, the guy's body's tremendous. He's still got explosion. He's still snappy. He showed how durable he is, what a dog he is, how he pushes through conditioning issues and stuff like that. Like, you got to show me you can beat somebody like Barboza. You got to show me that you can get by that power and says, take those body kicks and take those. You got to show me that you could, you could survive that. And I think it's a close fight. And I think you're right. I think Klose can absolutely win like a dirty, grimy decision in this fight. But until I see it, like, I don't know. I think they got it right with as far as the favorite. I think it should be closer. But give me Barboza.
Yeah, I'll probably end up siding with Barboza as well, but I just don't know if I want to get involved. I was hoping to get Barboza as a dog. A little bit of money kind of trickling in, but this line hasn't really gone too far from the opener. I mean, he opened at minus 150, and Klose opened at plus 110. So, maybe we're not alone as far as if you're not rushing to the betting window on this one. Maybe there's other angles to attack, but honestly, these fighters are getting older, and it's a theme what we've been talking about, Mike, as far as this card and lessons, at least I've been trying to learn from the last card, is respecting the age thing. As much as I love the older fighters, as much as I will stick to show me spots out of principle, at the same time, when you get older, things that didn't happen as much start to happen, and that durability, that Drakkar Klose you could associate with an Eric Anders type of fighter in a lot of ways, right? Yeah, they're like on that Pokemon chart, right? They evolve into each other. But yeah, I'll for the sake of the show, I'll pick Barboza, but I am not looking to get involved in this fight. Let's go to the next fight here. Nursulton Ruziboyev versus Bryan battle. Again, this is another one where is this a punishment middleweight fight, or is this the answer to most things? The UFC just needs to fill the schedule, right? Like with McConaughey and Brundage. Why they add that on? Again, 99% of the answers in the space, folks, are the UFC schedule. And this could be another one. I know Bryan Battle's had trouble making middleweight or welterweight, even though he looked pretty good down there for the most part, even though it was a big cut for him. But he is minus 170, the former 170-pounder, against Ruziboyev, who also moonlighted at 170. He's up at 185, big dude. He probably should be at 185, plus 140. The comeback on Ruziboyev. Over 2.5 rounds, minus 115, under 2.5 rounds, plus 115. It looks like they don't really know where to go with this either. I do agree with Bryan Battle being the favorite, and I've not been a big fan of Ruziboyev, and I still need to see more on Ruziboyev. However, I don't know if, I feel like this is like my fight where, like you said, with the flyer for Alexander Hernandez, even though it's a different fight and it's not as wide of a number. I still feel like I'm taking as big of a flyer, even just picking Ruziboyev, but I feel like I'm leaning toward Ruziboyev because I got a gut feeling, even though I agree that Battle should be the favorite. What do you got for this one, Mike?
Yeah, I don't got really much on this fight. I got to be honest with you. I mean, I was never a fan of either of these guys. I was never a fan of Bryan Battle. I was never a fan of Ruziboyev, but Bryan Battle has proven to me, bro, that he's a dog, dude. Like he really, I mean, there's some spots I watch him fight, and I'm like, man, this dude gets better and better every fucking fight. He's had some moments in some rounds where I'm like, like that, I don't like what he did there. But for the most part, like when he's clocked in, he's clocked in. So I'm leaning towards Bryan Battle here. I think that number's a little rich. And like I said, I the length of Ruziboyev, and there's so many factors involved in this fight. But at the end of the day, like they kind of remind me of the same fighter. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm leaning towards Battle a little bit, but you could sway me. Like I can easily be swayed on this fight.
Yeah, 100%. Not much else to say there. Let's push on to the next fight. I believe this one should be a WMMA fight, right? We got Killer Kareem Silva versus Diana Barboza. This is a rematch. So I was just about to say the UFC. I was about to give him props. I'm like, man, it's always been impromptu fight season and rematch season, right? But they haven't been drowning us with rematches as much these past couple of months. And I might have spoke too loud because, again, a senseless WMMA rematch that happened on the regionals and is being put together on a prelim card just to fill time here. Of course, the underdog, Diana Barboza, plus 180 was the winner of their last fight. But now the loser of the last fight, Killer Kareem, minus 220. Now, Killer Kareem by 2 years, 31, is the younger fighter. And I will say that perhaps I understand the line, not because of the age thing that gamblers are really weird about, but I would say if this fight was in the smaller octagon, I often bring up the fighting terrain, folks. I feel like, I think the line would be closer, if not maybe more toward Barboza with the grappling. Not that Killer Kareem can't grapple or get things of her own. And I admittedly didn't dive too deep into the tape in this one, but from memory serves, her last one was like that classic upset win against Viviane Araújo, who I usually fade because of her gas tank, but she has all the tools there to be a good fighter, which is a hard thing about fading or backing Araújo. You just don't know what you're going to get. and it was a classic show up spot for the younger up and comer fighter to fall. So I guess I can say I understand the line. I don't like it. I don't like this fight, and I won't be looking forward to betting this fight. Mike, what do you got for this fight?
Yeah, I like Silva here. This is a perfect spot where I tell people, like, don't go past a certain amount of fights. You know what I mean? When you look at these girls, you can't really look at their regional circuit. They, well, she lost to her on the regional circuit and she's a dog. Like, you don't do that, because fighters evolve from fight to fight, from week to week, from month to month, from year to year. And I just think Karina Silva has evolved, evolved into she surpassed her as a fighter. I do believe that what you said is true about the bigger cage is probably going to help her a little bit more. She's more fluid on the feet. She understands range a little bit better. And I think Barboza is going to have an issue kind of tracking her down and keeping her in one spot. I could see this fight being one of two ways. I could see it being a very close fight that Silva wins, or I could see her blowing Barboza out of the water and looking like a -3, 3 and change. So I'm going to go with Silva here. I just think her movement's going to give her trouble. I think, Barboza's getting in there with a fighter that it's not the same woman, even though they're both not the same woman. I just think that Karina Silva has evolved so much since that fight that she's the rightful favorite here.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the next. Hey, real quick, Dayton, you don't have Saizando or Donchenko, right?
I do have the graphic for it, but it doesn't have Donchenko because it wasn't made. That fight was just announced.
It was just added. Yeah. Don't stress it. I'll just say a Donchenko from Ukraine. I don't know much about him. I do know Rodrigo Saizando. He's actually a Brazilian Canadian, and he made my prospects to watch list for this year. He has not yet fought since last year, so I've been waiting for him. And I just actually tallied it up. I don't have it in front of me, but it's really nice. It's like a 97% finish rate. There's only I think it's like there's 18-3 or something. The prospects list, the 20 prospects to watch in 2025. He's a part of that list for what it's worth. So, stats wise, I'm going to guess that he's favored over the Ukrainian guy who is probably some random from a manager who's trying to gain favor with the UFC. So let's move on to the last fight. We got Alibi Ildiris versus Joseph Morales. Alibi Ildiris, it's okay. I got odds here. He is sorry. I had the odds up. Holy crap. Well, I guess we don't have odds for it, do we? I'll be curious what the odds are. Basically, Ildiris, he's a Kazakh fighter. Really well-rounded. Shout out to my guy Fanyo, was posting some clips on him. Really good at shifting, knows his way in transition, a real good flow of the fight. I'm really excited about this was my fight to look out for when over on SBC MMA Junkie this week. It's a flyweight opener, and we've got Joseph Morales, who's formerly Team Alpha Male. I don't know who he's training with now. Maybe he's still there, but I just remember him from back in the day. Cynthia Calvillo getting him in when she had some post-fight interview, and she was just like, "Give my guy Joseph Morales, give him a fucking shot." Sorry, I just had to do my little Latina impression there. And sure enough, Joseph Morales got his shot. Didn't do too well. Put together some work on the regional scene. Real explosive fighter, real fun knees, fun in scrambles, all action in every phase. So I don't know if it's a fight I want to get involved in as much as I want to enjoy. Do you have anything to say about this one, Mike? I know we don't really have odds to work with.
No, we got nothing to work with. I got no odds. I got no DraftKings prices, nothing. I'm not going to sit here and give you analysis on a fight I have not broke down. So
yeah, no worries.
I have nothing to say on it.
Yeah, no worries. I don't think it's fair to hold us to either picks on those. I will say I wouldn't be surprised if Alibi is still favored, despite Morales being the fighter with UFC experience. And again, for the reason the guy made my prospects list alone, do not be surprised to see Saizando as the favorite installed. So before we recap the picks and plays for this card, let's just do a quick recap and a replug of your promo up top. I know we kind of reversed order. We obviously wanted to be respectful of Eric Nixick's time. And also, the dude's coming off of a tough loss, and he's still giving us our time and showing up every week, just like we have to. And we can't tell you how much we respect that. So the recap, Mike, you killed it, bro. So please take the floor here.
Yeah. So before we do that, let's bring Dayton in for his dog pick of the week.
Oh, okay. I was going to do that with the when we recap our.
Okay. All right.
And I was going to end with our current picks of the plays. That would be the best way, so people can skip to the end. When they skip to the end, they won't be too thrown off.
Perfect. Yeah. So this week for me, man, it was another great week. I mean, I had from DraftKings. I mean, we had another couple people take down some major tournaments. From anywhere from a couple thousand to a little bit more than a couple thousand. Wagering, same thing as the week before. We only lost one wager. We went up 4.5 units this week again. So we're on a run right now. So we're doing another promo. I said once we go on a streak again, we'll run another promo. You get full fight breakdowns, everything you see on this chart right here. Promo code is UFC 319 MAD. Also, not only is it $20 off your first month, but we're not like other companies where we upcharge you for everything. Betting guides and football and this and that. We have our football team assembled called the Currency Cartel. We trimmed all the fat last year. We kept all our stars, and that will be included with your membership if you are here for us through football. So not only are you getting all this stuff for MMA with your membership, but you're also getting full NFL, DFS, and wagering. So hope you guys will come join us. We got different tiers that you can join: weekly, monthly, yearly. Come check us out. Private Discord. We sweat the fights together. A lot of sharp guys in there, and I hope I could see you this week and in the future.
Yeah, man. You've again. It's not just me blowing smoke. That's not my deal. I don't have any part of that, right? But so I'm being honest here. You've been fucking killing it, dude. You've been sharp. I came up just short, unfortunately, last week. It was a frustrating week. It could have been like here or there. It wasn't like terrible. I hit by the way, cash another round robin. This has been my best year for round robins. I will say that, even if I'm not like winning all the events and I still have an overall negative record more than positive, dude. I've never given up this many round robins I hit in my whole life, dude. It's been crazy. Great. We hit the Feely. Hit Feely as a dog, Benji Boy Dog of the Week, which I'm going to parlay that into Dayton's Dog of the Week, who hit the Mechanico, right? I feel like Dayton's good juju finally allowed me to hit a Benji Boy Dog. It was the first Benji Boy Dog of the Week. Shout out to Feely. I'm glad I picked him over Angie Hill, who let us down, and Miles John. So
that was actually my biggest bet of the night, was plus 350 by decision.
On who?
On Feely.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Smart. Oh, yeah, that was huge. That was a nice hit. I told you that on the night. That was sweet. Yeah. I didn't know you were on the decision until you posted it. That was sweet. But I will say my John's pick didn't come through, but I wasn't crazy on that, was I, though? I will say he at least made me not look crazy, and he at least did enough to get the split, which, again, I do this method all the time, where especially when you bet the dog, but even as a favorite, if the context fits, whether you're exposing yourself on a dog or a favorite, if the potential is a close fight could upset and shit in your cereal, why not throw the split in a round robin if you're playing round robins, So it comes in as a hedge. So that's exactly what I mean. It hedged out on the John's pick, and it double dipped us on the Feely pick. And then together those splits paid off 2 round robins alone. So even though I came up just a quarter unit short, I will say we hit the Dog of the Week. And, the analysis wasn't terrible, which I know is always kind of my crutch, but hey, that's what we're here for. Both of us, we're here to help you guys with your plays, and we give out this free analysis every week. So let's recap this week, shall we, Mike?
Yeah.
Let's before we recap, we got to know though, what is Dayton's Dog of the Week? Speaking of Dayton's Dog of the Week and his good juju that he blessed us with, what are you blessing us with this week, Dayton?
All right. Well, like I said earlier, it's a little bit of a risky one. I don't know how I feel about this one, but here we go.
Woo! Cannonier. Wow, nice. All right. Well, I'm glad I'm not exposed on the MVP side with the love for Cannonier between you and Eric Nixick. I mean, Cannonier's got a hell of a blessing on his side, I'd say, Mike. Huh?
Yeah, he doesn't he use crystals?
I mean, he might not need to with Dayton and Eric on his side, but yeah, he does. He's got the crystals as well. Holy shit! All right,
he goes 2-0.
Yeah, I'm curious. It might keep me away from that fight, honestly, and I might just be rooting for the dog there, just for the Dayton streak, because it's such good juju. All right, well, that's Dayton's Dog of the Week. I got a lot to choose from for the Benji Boy Dogs of the Week for me, but for me, the Benji Boy Dog of the Week, and we'll get a graphic for this too eventually, but we'll get the Benji Boy Dog of the Week. I'm going to go with GM3. I know I'm officially on DDP and GM3 as far as my most committed dogs that I'm playing on, but I like GM3 a lot. And GM3, I can never be mad at GM3 if he loses, just like I could be never mad at my Benji Boy if he shits on my carpet. So if there's shit in my cereal, I won't be mad. I feel like I'm in good faith with my guy GM3, who plays as Koopa Troopa on Mario Kart, which I always respect. Koopa Troopa, an excellent choice for Mario Kart. Not that I'm a good part player, but I love Koopa Troop. All right, let's we'll go down. We'll go down the picks here to see where we agreed, and then I'll give you my plays and my potential round robin at the end. Sound good, Mike?
Yep.
All right. So correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but we both picked Du Plessis, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's right. And
I think we should put him in our parlay. I think we should put him in our parlay.
Okay. Do you remember what Eric gave for
that was the one fight? That was the one fight where he kind of steered away from, I think, a little bit. Yeah. But I think he was leaning. It's to me, I don't want to talk out of turn or talk for him.
Sure.
But it sounded like he was leaning towards DDP.
Yeah, he didn't disagree with our analysis, he said. Yeah. So for whatever that's worth. Not putting words in his mouth, obviously. And then for this fight, Lerone Murphy versus Aaron Pico, I feel like we were opposites on this one. I'm leaning, or maybe not actually. I think we both were on the same side. We were both leaning toward Pico, and it was Eric that was leaning toward Murphy, right, Eric? Right, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay, so me and Mike were both on Pico. We were both on Du Plessis for what that's worth, folks. Now, Neal Prates, we're split. I know we're split. I'm leaning toward Prates, although I'm not bullish on it, and I'm very sympathetic to Neal arguments here. But I'm officially on Prates here, and you're officially on Neal, correct?
Yes, sir.
I think Eric also, not to put words in his mouth, he also liked Neal as an underdog, correct?
He did.
Yep. And I know he liked Cannonier as an underdog, and as he brilliantly outlined the clinch. And we know Dayton's dog of the week is Cannonier. But we both technically fell on Page, did we not? Not super bullish, but we did fall on Page, right?
Yep.
Okay, not mischaracterizing there. And finishing out the main card, I am, again, you were very sympathetic, I believe, to the dog argument, but you're officially with Asakura, correct?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But I do like that Tim Elliott plus 3.5 at plus money. It's plus 110.
To further drive home how sympathetic you are to the underdog, which is why I'm leaning toward the underdog. I don't know if I'm going to play him or not. He's a potential round robin before we get to that, but my official pick was there, and I believe so was Eric's, but he also was very honest and critical, fairly critical about the caveats when it comes to trusting Tim Elliott as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Now it's just us for the rest of these picks. We both liked Carlos Diego Ferreira. I was bullish on him myself. I can speak for, correct?
Yep.
All right. I liked GM3 here. And did you end up on Oleksiejczuk, or you GM3 as well?
I did. But I like I said, you could sway me on that. But yeah, I'm on Lord Michael.
Another reason why that one shouldn't be the drink pick is we're probably going to stick to this one for the drink pick, right? I'm on Andrade, you're on Godinez, and we're going to make that the shot bet for this week, right?
Perfect.
I agree with that. That's a very fair fight to do it for. Alexander Hernandez, you're taking a flyer on him, although you are very, very well aware you might be on an island, but you respectfully laid your case correct, sir. And I'm on Hooper.
Okay.
All right. We both took Barboza, but we're not feeling too bullish about this fight in general over Drakkar Klose, right?
Mm-hmm.
We both, no, maybe not. I reluctantly took Ruzaboyev. I know your pick's a reluctant one, but where did you reluctantly land on? Battle?
Battle, yeah.
The favorite? Yeah, he is the favorite and deservedly so. Okay. And we both are taking the favorite to avenge the rematch in Kareem Silva over Dejan Barboza, but we're not rushing to the betting window on this one, right?
Right.
Yep. We are both, going to pass on picks because there's not really odds and much to break down on these late editions. But I'll probably be picking who's probably going to be favored, I imagine, even if he's not. I'll still pick him because I'm going to stand by my guy, Saizondo, who made my prospects to watch list over Donchenko. And I'll speak for myself, not speaking for Mike here. I'm probably leaning toward what I've seen from Alibi, but I want to watch a little more from him and a little more of Morales' regionals before I come down hard on that one. And I'm on DDP plus 205, 1.5 units. Also going to sprinkle on DDP rounds 3, 4, and 5 for 0.17 apiece. I'm on GM3 plus 185 for 1.5 units. Also GM3 sub plus 350.33 US Scottie Pippen. Round 2 by sub plus 1200, 0.17 with a bullet. A straight 2-unit exposure on CDF, Carlos Diego Ferreira at minus 150. And I will be targeting Hooper round 2. Round 3, I'll be targeting Hooper round 2 in the round robin. We'll be targeting GM3 by sub in the round robin. If I don't have the balls on Tim Elliott to play him straight, then I may put his money line in there in a round robin. And I don't know what else I can give you off the top of my head, but I will be filling those at the usual place on my free Substack at Dan Tom MMA. That's the same address where you can find me on all socials, from Instagram over to the artist formerly known as Twitter at Dan Tom MMA. I post my picks and plays thread on Twitter on fight day at Dan Tom MMA, but you can get it 48 to 24 hours before for free again, where I list it all with a little more context for you over on my Substack at Dan Tom MMA. Like and comment this video, and be sure to hit up Mike at all the places he's about to tell you right now.
Yeah, so real quick, I put together, while you were talking, I put together a little parlay.
Oh, yeah, our parlay. How could I forget? Here we go, right at the end. Perfect. Hit us with
So
it.
tell me if you could change anything you want, but tell me if you agree with it. So I got Aaron Pico.
Yep.
I got Du Plessis.
All right.
I have Tim Elliott plus 3.5.
Okay.
And I have Diego Ferreira, and that pays out plus 1579.
Here's the only thing. Not only our listeners might not be able to, but I personally can't parlay plus 3.5. So I can play plus 3.5 straight at a house.
Okay, so we take that out.
Me parlay them. Okay.
So we take that out.
And I like it, by the way. I fucking love it, by the way.
We can actually just keep those. We can actually just keep those 3.
What's those 3 pay?
Hey, it's plus 710. So
holy shit, that's over plus 500. Yeah, that's good. Du Plessis, Pico, and
Du Plessis plus
and
200.
CDF. Oh, fuck yeah. Let's do that. All right. Lock it in. So we got the DOP parlay. It's going to be CDF, Pico, DDP. Easy to write down, too. We got 3 of the 3 initials and then just Pico, like Pico de Gallo, which hopefully will be sprinkling cash like they sprinkle Pico de Gallo with the nachos, even though I don't like them, too. I get it on the side because I'm a weird anti-onion guy. But that's neither here nor there. I'll get crucified in the comments for that. Feel free, because it'll help us with the engagement. Comments what you guys like below, if you like that parlay or not. I think that's a really simple one for plus 710. It almost seems too good to be true. I'm going to lay it down right after we get off here. But Mike, please plug your stuff, man, again, where they can find you and sign up for any of your promos, your site, and your handles.
Yeah, man, just go to Twitter. I score all the fights. We're always on X, I guess they call it now, X. So you could see me there at Madlab MMA. Go to the madlabmma.com if you guys are interested in the content. But also, if you don't sign up, we do have a free newsletter that we call the Transparency Report, that every single week, unlike a lot of these companies out there, we talk about our wins and our losses. There's some weeks where the transparency comes out and I have nothing bad to say. So, like the last 2 months, we've been going well. So we kind of review everything we did right. But the weeks that we do bad, we shit on each other. Like, I completely shit on myself in the Transparency Report. So that's basically what it is. It's giving you the review of the week. So even if you're not a member, it's completely free. Just go to the website, sign up for the newsletter, and every week, usually Monday or Tuesday, the Transparency Report comes out with our review.
Fantastic, guys. Thanks again and again. Like, comment, and share. Let's thank our guest, Eric. And in case you want to thank us too, especially Mike, for getting all these wins for you guys, especially. Thank us for free. You don't have to pay us anything. This is free. Just like, share, comment, share it out, tag us so we can share you and retweet it. Let's pay back our guests. Let's pump this show out, and let's really get this one and cash some tickets this weekend. Good luck on your picks and plays, and always protect your neck.
Oh.